Moment, space-wise.
Let's create lives.
Moment, space-wise. God the Father has a body. It's a very tone body.
He looks good, he looks good.
Moment, space-wise. Moment, space-wise. Magic underwear fitting tight. Magic underwear is feeling right.
Space-wise.
Moment, space-wise. Moment, space-wise. Lord Cola.
I would like to have intimacies with you.
On the planet of Naboo. Space-wise.
Let's create life.
Space-wise. God the Father has a body. It's a very tone body.
He looks good, he looks good, he looks good, he looks good, 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 good. Space, sex, space, sex.
Space. Moment, space-wise. Moment, space-wise. Space error. Moment, space-wise.
Moment, space-wise.
Moment, space-wise.
Let's create space, sex, space.
Oh yeah! There's only one thing that can bring this world together, and that begins with you. The word begins with you, not you. I'm gonna tell you what word it is. Usury! On the dance floor. Get that ass up. Bankers, get on the floor. Bankers, make the people poor. Bankers, get more paid. Bankers, get more paid. Get more paid. I wanna see your ass poor. CEOs, yeah, I'm talking to you. Get more hoes, get more paid, get more votes, get more laid. I wanna see the CEOs ruining lives to the beat. Ruin those lives in 141 BPS. Oh yeah. Sweet cool. Sweet cool. Where's the interest rates? I wanna see the banker on the floor. Shake that ass. Who's ready? On the dance floor. Ha-ha! Oh yeah! Bankers, get on the floor. Bankers, make the people poor. Bankers, get more paid. Bankers, get more name. Only one thing can bring this world together. Destruction of the middle class. Ha-ha! And more fiat cash in my bank account. Bankers, get on the floor. Bankers, make the people poor. Bankers, get more paid. Bankers,
Dyer is your cult leader. I promise you, if this is your pope, if this is your king,
I
this
am
is
the
not gonna
Pope
end
of
well
the
for you guys.
future.
I am the Pope of the future.
The future.
The tyrannical reigner.
Tyrannical reigner.
I am the Pope of the future. Bless God Industries, profits look major. Ortho bros dangerous, label us later. Call me a pope, yeah, I'll take that
is the
title
one
while you sell
AI
excess
slot we
like
allow.
a paper trial. I am the Pope of the future. The future.
The tyrannical reigner. Tyrannical reign. I am the Pope of the future.
Living inside a Walmart. Debate, wait, got a price on the line. $99.99 just to get some time. Ruslan rapping, but the flow so funny. Every bar sound like
Send more money. I am the Pope of the future.
the future.
The tyrannical reigner. Tyrannical reign. I am the Pope of the future.
Living inside a Walmart. I'm the big meanie, they all wanna run. Call me a villain, but I'm having fun. You invite an old man dressed like a baby, then act surprised when it all gets crazy. Jamie, where's my ginger chew? These goobers are so salty.
I am the Pope of the future.
The future.
The tyrannical reigner. Tyrannical reign. I am the Pope of the future.
Living inside a Walmart. And that Trent guy.
Yeah, he play it safe.
Don't wanna cuss. Think he'll burn in the flame. Oh wait, hold up. I remember the rule. I'm the Pope of the future. I write the rules.
The future's calling me. It's my destiny.
Broccoli hair shouting, but he can't stop me.
I'm the Pope of the future. Just wait and see.
It's me. Hear the haters sing.
Let the BTC all ring.
If the whole world's mad, then that's fine with me.
I'm the Pope of the future.
Bow to the wigs and tea, I'm emperor.
I am the Pope of the future.
The future.
The tyrannical reigner. Tyrannical reign. I am the Pope of the future.
Need a triple espresso after this.
Last song. Last song.
Bingo. Bingo. Everybody's got a screenshot, got a clip, got a thread. Half the internet is arguing about a something they never read, agree with one sentence. Now they say you join the team. One nod becomes a manifesto in the outrage machine. A joke flies over 20 heads, nobody gets the bit. A million words on what was said, but not on what was meant. Price a question at a Bitcoin just to make the timeline scream. By sunrise, people write essays on a joke and call it deep. They're counting every word, they're hunting every frame, but somehow every week they're saying your name. Mean machine. Everybody knows what you mean. Mean machine. Breaking every comfortable scene. They say you're wrong, they say you're rude. They say they're done and they consume another stream from the mean machine. Mean machine. Professional debaters with their polished little lines, walk in like they're champions, walk out revising slides, talk
All right, welcome everybody back to the normal grind. We had a big event, huge podcast. To date, I think this will most likely be the largest podcast interview that we've done today by far. I think you guys are going to enjoy it when it drops. A few comments on it. I do want to look at some other topics today, but one thing I noticed just in passing that I'd actually forgotten about, I read a good bit of the Apostolic Fathers and Post-Apostolic Fathers many years ago, and I forgot that there were these sort of forgotten canons that were used in some of the Eastern churches. There's some debate about the dating of this. This could be anywhere from 230s into the 300s, but I thought it was interesting that we already notice in the 200s, it would appear, the usage of liturgical vestments. So you'll notice here in the canons of Hippolitus, used in the Eastern churches. I'm not exactly sure why it's attached to St. Hippolytus, who was the Pope of Rome in the 200s. But Canon 37 says, when the bishop celebrates the Holy Communion synaxis, the holy priest or presbyters who stand beside him should be clothed in white. So you'll notice that they're already utilizing, at this time, vestments. And this is, of course, relevant because vestments are not a late development. They're a natural occurrence given the continuity of the Old Testament with the New Testament in terms of the church. This is just one amongst many examples of sort of hidden gems that you find in canons. And although Western Christians tend to automatically default, typically whether they're Protestant or Catholic, to thinking only about what this or that church father said, really it's the canons that are even more interesting in this regard because they signify something more common than one single church father or saint. Even if they were an important bishop, canons are the mind of an entire region, synod, etc. So I just thought that was interesting. There's also some very fascinating treatises in St. Hippolytus that are partial preterist. So even in the early days of the church, and Hippolytus is a fascinating character because he was, I think, for a time considered an anti-pope, but ended up being a good pope through a series of controversial events. Yeah, so this is very early. This is 165 to 2, basically the pope during the year, around 200. So we're very early in church history, right? We're 200 AD, and there's the controversy over St. Hippolytus of Rome and who's the authentic successor to the Bishopric of Rome. And you'll find pretty consistently in the works and the writings of St. Hippolytus various lists of Roman bishops, right? And this is still repeated in the Roman Catholic liturgy to this day: Linus, Cletus, Clement, etc. It's part of the liturgical tradition in the Western, the Latin Rite. But these canons are used by the Ethiopian churches, I think, even still to this day, not advocating for their theological errors, just pointing out that as one of the historic lineages, even though they're in schism, you can see in their ancient canons called the canons of Hippolytus the same idea. Because, and I think you guys are going to know, this is just one little gem I wanted to drop before the David Wood debate, which will be coming up in Orlando sometime this summer. I forget the exact date. Maybe late summer, early fall or something. But so I'm sure many of you are wondering, what podcast did he go on? Well, if you look at the blessed thumbnail that I made once again, my thumbnails are becoming more and more legendary, I would say, if I do say so myself. We have several clues in this thumbnail. We see a Tony Soprano character, so perhaps I went on a mafia podcast. Perhaps I was back on. No, can't be that, because there's no mafia podcast that's one of the biggest in the world, unless we're talking about Ben Shapiro and the Israeli mafia podcast. Just kidding. We see Nicolas Cage. Could that be a clue? Was I on the Cage pod? Was I on Cage Rage together with Nick in studio, fulfilling one of my bucket lists of hanging out, chilling with Nicolas Cage? Perhaps I was on with Hawk Tua. Perhaps I'm there to help revitalize and reinvent and rebrand Talk Tua. And so they brought heavyweights such as myself on. Perhaps I was on RuPaul's Drag Race, feeling sassy. Perhaps I was on Beyonce's podcast, fighting it out with my fellow BIPOC divas. Perhaps I was on Call Her Daddy, as you see here, the ambiguous-faced blonde woman here, who is the host of Call Her Daddy gross podcast. Perhaps I was there. But I want you guys in the chat. You get to figure out, get to guess. Many people are saying Theo Vaughn, Joe Rogan, Tucker, Sean Ryan, PBD. Perhaps I was on Girls Gone Bible. Perhaps I was on Girls Gone Wild and I was flexing my yogurt pants in my OF account, where you can watch me dancing in my yogurt pants. Perhaps I was on with Allie Beth Stuckey and I'm reverted to evangelicalism. And that's a big announcement that I'm going to announce to you guys. Throw a little curveball at you. Well, I'm going to leave it up to you all to keep speculating. Perhaps I was on with Matan, although I wouldn't say Matan's is one of the biggest out there. So perhaps I was on with Howard Stern, and it was actually the year 1999, and we were talking about strippers and gross things. Perhaps I was on with Mark Levin, and we were discussing boomer Cold War stories and regaling one another with our triumphant IDF Mossad operations. Perhaps I was on with Sean Hannity, and we were discussing, I don't even know what Sean Hannity did. I don't know if I've ever seen a Sean Hannity show. So whatever boomer neocon shit Sean Hannity talks about, maybe I was on there talking to him. Maybe I was on, maybe it was 2005 and I was on Glenn Beck on CNN. People don't remember that Glenn Beck used to be on CNN. Maybe I was on with Bill O'Reilly. And I said, funk it, we'll do it live. Come on now. We love Jamie Kennedy, you guys, but Jamie Kennedy doesn't have one of the biggest podcasts out there. Yeah, you guys are, because they're overthinking things a little bit. But I will say this about the podcast. It was fun because we didn't actually talk about all the stuff I figured we'd talk about. I was sort of kept a little in the dark on what the topics would be, and that ended up being a good thing. I really enjoyed that because I think it made for a fresher, more on the spot improv podcast, and I love doing it improv, stream of consciousness on the spot. That's just pretty much how I love to do that. That's how we do things. So I prepared quite a bit beforehand, which never ends up being a bad thing anyway, because all the material that I prepare really hard for ends up being content for you guys anyway, right? So like going there on the airplane, I'm like trucking through these books, coming back, I'm trucking through these books. But we didn't end up really talking a whole lot about the stuff that I was like, cram test, final exam preparing for. And it worked out fine because all these other subjects were, I think, I'm not saying it just because it was, exciting and all that. I think this will probably be, I think you guys are really going to enjoy this podcast. I mean, this podcast was, I didn't check the clock because I was really into it, but I want to say felt like 2.5 hours. It might get kind of edited down to 2. I don't know. I mean, I took like a bathroom break, that kind of stuff. So it might end up being 2, it might be 2.5. We covered everything, but we were very heavy on certain topics that you guys, I think, are going to resonate with. And I don't recall, I'm trying to think of the last time I did a podcast this sort of philosophically meaty and heavy and dense. I don't even remember the last time we did a podcast like that. So I think this one's going to be, I think the audience is going to really enjoy it. Tried stacking in quite a few impressions. Some of my impressions kind of were missed, like who's that? But that kind of makes for also a little bit of fun, because sometimes when the person, the host doesn't really get, or your guest doesn't get your impressions, it actually makes it kind of awkward and fun, because they're sort of like, they're wondering why you just started talking in some other voice, like maybe you're schizophrenic or something, or you've got issues, or like, does the person have Tourette's? Does he start suddenly just ejaculating other people's voices, like he's got some kind of issue? And then you have to explain who you're impersonating, which then ends up being its own little awkward version of funny. But it was an adventure for sure. I believe this drops Monday. I'm not 100% sure, but going from memory from what the producer said, I think they said Monday. So you guys are going to enjoy when this drops. It's going to be all over the place. All over the place. But that's actually good, because that means there's like 10 different topics that can be clipped into little, 10-minute-ish segments, I would guess. So that's probably better for, various algorithmic things. So I don't want to say too much more about what we talked about, because it might give it away, and I want everybody to keep guessing and, whispering. I've already been on Piers Morgan twice, you guys, three times. So it's not Piers Morgan. And a lot of people think that I went on The View. Look, all of that older gossip about me and Whoopi Goldberg and the sexting, I've already addressed it. I've already done my public repentance and humiliation, because I shouldn't have engaged in that. She started it. It has to do with the thickness of my thighs, my thunder thighs. I have triple C level thick thunder thighs. They're birthing hips. They're sexy. It's a thorn in the flesh that I've had to deal with. And so a lot of women find this very appealing. They go crazy, some might say. So I've already addressed this, and I'm not going to address it again. So no, I did not go on The View. Due to the sex scandal with Whoopi Goldberg, that never actually came about. But I was scheduled to be as actually a regular on The View. I was going to be their one BIPOC diva, white black person on The View. For diversity's sake, they were thinking of expanding to having Wigger analysis as well. That led to the sexting scandal, and so that just never came about. So no, it's not The View. I can go ahead and quell your questions about whether I went on The View. It was not The View. I personally think that there was a lot of jealousy between Joy Reid, her feelings for me, Whoopi Goldberg's feelings for me. They needed a sassy e-diva, wigger conservative to be on there. Anyway, I do want to give a shout out to the Memphis rap scene. I think the timing of my Memphis rap album coming out with this big interview when it drops, perfect timing. We set that up with the label. Shout out to 36 Mafia. Shout out to Juicy J. Shout out to Project Pat. Shout out to Kingpin Skinny Pimp. My Memphis rap album will drop Monday as well. So tear the club up, Wigger. Tear the club up. We did have a funny discussion about my Wigger appearance on Piers Morgan at this podcast. I don't think it came up during the podcast, but I think it came up in discussions. I like how everybody is recommending all of the not biggest podcasts that are out there. Like, he went on Coast to Coast. Yes, I went on Coast to Coast to triangulate my boomer conspiracies because the aliens are after me. So definitely, you guys are right. Totally 100%. You already guessed it. I went on Coast to Coast. Does Coast to Coast still exist? I don't even know if it exists. It's not a podcast though. It's boomer radio. What are you guys even talking about? Bill. No, I didn't go on Bill Maher. I would go on Bill Maher, but I doubt I would get invited on Bill Maher. I don't know, but I called in from a payphone to George Norrie and told him that the aliens were triangulating me. John, what's up, man? What's on your mind, son? By the way, I did get, as I've told you guys, quite a bit of airtime in airplanes, which I hate. And I got really far into Vatican spies, so I'm pretty much halfway into that. And I am almost done with the Rothschilds biography by Morton. Wow, what a Game of Thrones level biography the Morton book was. That one was way more interesting than I expected. The Vatican Spies book is really good. To be honest with you, the first half deals with Vatican espionage in the first half of the 20th century. It's a little boring to me. So we're getting up into the Cold War. That's much more interesting to me. But the tiny mustache man era of espionage and the Vatican, it's interesting. It's just not the most interesting. And it kind of didn't really go anywhere. There wasn't a whole lot to it. There's a little bit with Stepanich and the Ustasha and that kind of stuff. The so-called rat lines, which is a little more of a complicated story than, sort of normies think of the Vatican rat lines. But there is some truth to that. So I will be getting into that. It's just that really the Vatican espionage stuff doesn't get interesting until Bill Donovan, William Colby, and James Jesus Angleton. That's when it gets just off the hook.
Well, it doesn't get interesting until Charlie Sheen and Alex Jones become Vatican assassins.
Oh yeah, that's the old days. That's the old days. By the way, I learned the true story. I'm not going to say what it is, but I learned the true story of Tiger Blood. So it was not what I expected it to be. I just
want to let everybody know. I already know which podcast Jay went. He told me before he even went on it. I'm going to go ahead and say it. It was Red Scare.
Yes, the biggest podcast in the world. Dasha, 100%.
Yep, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jimmy. I didn't feel it was fair to the audience that was listening that you kept it from them any longer. So I apologize to you.
Yeah, that's fun. After going on this podcast, I might actually get invited on Red Scare because I remember years ago, I asked her one time to do an interview and she dissed me. And then she later did do the interview. So I might get invited on Red Scare after this one. This one was, how can we put it? It's actually somewhat adjacent to Red Scare types of topics. And when you watch the interview, you guys will understand what I'm saying. But no, this was not a long-term game. This was all a long-term game just to get on Red Scare, right?
It was the long game to get on Red Scare. Also, to get on Barstool Sports.
Yes, Portnoy was the Port.
Knowing how much we know that you love sports ball.
Yes.
And that you're actually pivoting into sports ball commentary with the advent of the New World Order game of soccer that's being foisted upon the American public.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a partnership with Polymarket for gay soccer teams, because the future is gay soccer. So, which is gay football. So yes, that's where I'm going, and we're pivoting in that direction. And I need to get on with Dasha and Dave Portnoy to make that happen. So John has spilled the entire branding game plan that we have.
And also one more thing I want to point out is that they're actively reinventing history, rewriting history to make people think that, because obviously you and I have been friends for a long time, we know that we don't like sports ball anymore. We both used to like sports ball when we were kids.
Yeah.
But they're actively trying to rewrite history to make people think that like everybody always liked soccer.
I know.
Nobody liked soccer in the 80s. Just so all you millennials and Zoomers and nobody liked soccer ever.
And they're doing it as a marketing thing because, for example, in Nashville, it's Reese Witherspoon who has a whole bunch of money behind the Nashville soccer team that they're bringing in. And by the way, it's actually more than that. It's also a tool of globalization. People don't realize that the reason that they push these types of things is not just to make money. It's not just social engineering. It's also part of globalization if you can have gigantic international sports type things, because then we're no longer thinking of nation states and people groups or what. We're actually thinking, oh, we're all a global, gamified society, and we're playing Brazil, right? We're playing Europe, and we're playing, it's to make it globalized, because sports has been NFL, right? National Football League, right? National Basketball League. Well, now you're going to get the global gay sports soccer leagues. So that's why people miss that aspect of it.
If you ever see a soccer game, there will always be UNICEF banners.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all United Nations. It's all human trafficking, or that type of stuff. I won't say it because I know you're on YouTube.
No, that goes on. There's also like soft power espionage stuff that goes on. That's why it was a huge deal when they had Sochi Olympics, because it was like, well, Russia's evil, so how can we have the Olympics there? And then if they do it in China, it's like, oh, but see, China's good, and it's like globalization's good because China's, it ends up being this like element of soft power. There's also, like you said, like the black market stuff that goes on. It's retarded. It's the same with the Olympics too. So, but sports is all just social engineering. Now, guys, look, this popped up because the Greek Orthodox and various other groups are doing these ecumenist virtue signaling events for Juneteenth and Kwanzaa or whatever the hell they're celebrating. I know Elpida Forrest is a big, huge fan of all things Juneteenth and BLM. He used to march with BLM. And it's just sad that the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese, which is such a slave to the American State Department power structure, the archons, etc., that they continue to do this, even though it's like nobody in the rest of the Orthodox domain typically wants this stuff, right? Ecumenism is becoming more and more unpopular. And that's why people are converting, because they don't want that. They're leaving the sects that they were in that had already adopted all this ecumenism. But of course, the Orthodox world is not immune to all the same sorts of temptations, drama, and global full court press to push this stuff. But the more that I read these biographies and these deep geopolitical texts, the more I come to see that ecumenism is largely, I think, a geopolitical tool. It's not just a foreign influence geopolitical tool with entities like the World Council of Churches and all that kind of stuff. That's a big part. But it's also a tool for domestic sort of influence through pushing the woke agenda, right? I mean, obviously these things are going to go together. If you're ecclesiologically relativistic, there's a really good chance that probably in your ethics and the rest of your theology, you're going to be liberal or relativistic. And so we see these, it looks like even, I want to say that this is actually a wandering bishop Episcopi Vagante sect that's participating now in this, what appears to be ecumenist gathering at a Greek Orthodox shrine. None of this is new. I mean, again, ecumenism has been with us back to the late 1800s, but it's been progressively turned to more and more geopolitical agendas, perhaps beyond what it was initially intended to be. I mean, it was probably always intended in some degree to be used for something like that. You know, you had these, as I mentioned in my other stream, that was for members. You had these meetings with Anglicans and Orthodox, you know, a long time ago. That probably had a British imperial motivation behind it, between Greek Orthodox and having these ecumenist meetings with Anglican bishops. But nowadays, I think we can understand, especially if you listen to the talk that we did on the Matrokin archives and the battle that both the CIA and the KGB had to try to turn or use the World Council of Churches to their own designs. So the West wanting to use it as a means to condemn the Soviets and their infiltrators trying to use the World Council of Churches as a means of pushing sort of Soviet ideas of what progressivism was. But now it's, you know, the Soviets don't exist anymore. They're gone. You do have, I guess, perhaps elements of ecumenism within the Russian church, but it's not near as bad as most of the other places. Really, ecumenism has kind of become the brand of Western Americanized so-called Christianity. So it just infects everything. The whole presupposition is that there is no church. We're finding the church. We're all discovering the church. Nobody can say anyone else got it wrong or is bad. There's no more polemics. We don't do apologetics anymore. It's all dialogue to discover a new future church, a new supra-international reality. And when you understand the depths of the Cold War, and I'm not saying that I'm an expert in this. This is a subject, though, that I have gone very deep into, and I intend to keep going much deeper into, because more and more the suspicions that I have are further confirmed. So, you know, for example, when we did the academic text by Michael Graziano on the relationship of the CIA to religion in America in the 20th century, ecumenism played a huge role in that guy's text, and that guy's not particularly religious or an ecumenist. He's an academic, probably a lib. I don't think he cares about some sort of theological agenda at all, but he's very hip to the fact that, oh, Wild Bill Donovan, massive ecumenist. Oh, all of the Jesuits, recruited and used by the CIA via Fordham and Georgetown and et cetera. Oh, they're all just also happen to be massive ecumenists pushing for all the reforms at Vatican II. Oh, Gregory Baum, the gay Jewish guy who writes Nostra Aetate. Lo and behold, shocker, massive ecumenist, right? So, as we saw in the discussion, this is also what led John Paul to be such a rabid proponent of religious liberty, because this was a major angle that was used during the Cold War as a way to kind of give the impression, or I'm not saying it was all false, but to do ideological info war against the Soviets was to say the Soviets are persecuting the natural rights that everyone has to total religious liberty. This is something, again, in my younger days, when I didn't really understand this kind of stuff, when I thought it was all just theology nerds battling it out at Vatican II, and somehow the libs, because of the Jews, took over. It's a lot more sophisticated than that. It's actually that the American empire, its ethos, needed these entities to be forms of soft power during the Cold War to push Americanism, to win the ideological battle of the Cold War. And so to do that, pretty much all of the religions in the West, whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses, whether it's a large portion of the Orthodox world, whether it's John Paul II especially. Now Paul VI was actually much more of an espionage operative than I thought, as was Pius XII, by the way. But it's sort of grows in intensity in terms of the relationship of the Vatican to espionage in the 20th century. Pius XII worked in the Vatican's secret service prior to becoming Pope. I didn't know that. Paul VI, way more interested in and involved in espionage than I suspected, even after reading many of the texts that we've read before about Gladio. And then John Paul II sort of takes it to the next level because of such a very, very close relationship to the CIA, because the CIA felt that he could really be one of the key ideological figures to help, quote, win the Cold War. Now, as you guys know, doesn't mean the Soviets are good, doesn't mean the communists are good. It just simply means that, reality is not what we were told, what the boomers were told. It's a little more sophisticated. It's a little more of a controlled dialectic, because you basically got, Cardinal Spellman is a huge character in this. In fact, Spellman had a much more important role than I knew about. I mean, I knew he was kind of a corrupt figure, and I knew he sort of liaisoned with different power players. I did not know that he was an informant for the FBI, and he did missions for the OSS. I didn't know any of that until the Vatican Spies book, which goes in. Basically, all of these books cover a lot of the same material. Whether it's Ganser's book or Williams's book on Gladio, or God's Banker book, or Vatican Spies, or Wim Hof's book, but they all will kind of have these different foci that bring in other nuggets that the others don't bring in, right? So like one book will talk about Cardinal Spellman in passing, whereas another book will say, oh, he's actually doing all this. And you're like, wow, Spellman was like a huge, Cold War player, bigger than I knew about. Liaison between all these different things. So that also, again, is a huge thing. So shout out to whoever was mentioning Cardinal Spellman in the chat, because he's definitely a significant character throughout multiple chapters in the Vatican Spies book. So the good thing too about Vatican Spies is only 20th century. That I also did get 2 other books on Vatican espionage that we'll be covering as well. And we are going to cover Ostrovsky's Mossad book. We are going to cover, because the Roman Catholics, all he does is talk about the Vatican. No. I talk about that because not many people talk about it. But we will also talk about these other topics too. I don't think any of this, by the way, came up in the big interview. So I was over here cramming for all of that. I don't think any of that came up. Maybe a brief in passing, but anyway, we're not going to talk about that tonight unless you guys want to talk about it, because it is open calls. You guys are welcome to bring in any topic that you want within reason, because, of course, we are on YouTube, so we have to abide by certain restrictions, as you guys probably all know. Then there was actually an Orthodox priest. I'm not familiar with Father Daniel. I don't think, and I know a Father Daniel. I don't think this is the same one, though. But I saw this comment come through that I thought was really good, too, that a lot of these sort of ecumenist bishops, they're also the locus of the people that don't like apologetics. They're the ones that don't like what we do, bringing people to orthodoxy, because it's contrary to the ecumenist agenda. But as you can see, why would you be against people converting? Well, if you basically are a hired servant or a wage slave in the way that Jesus talks about, right? The wage slaves. The people that don't actually care about the flock, you're really just an appendage of the state, as unfortunately many of these bishops are really just adjuncts of the State Department or the state. Their job is really to ensure that the church just either continues on as a business, or as an ethnic community, or as a form of American soft power. That's all they really care about. So it's not about converting America to orthodoxy. And as I'm sure many of you know, many bishops, many priests, everywhere, right, are unfortunately compromised. They are bought off. They are blackmailed. And this shouldn't be surprising to anyone, given the fact that even the boomers know that the Soviets were very adept at this during the Cold War. The NKVD had a pretty useful and effective method of doing this. They didn't end up winning the Cold War, but they were good at figuring out, okay, this bishop's gay. We got the dirt. So it's like, it's not that hard. Okay, this is the reality of how the world works. Not everything is as it's presented. That's, we're not normies around here. So when we see, for example, when I see priests speak out like this, it's very encouraging, because he's actually just calling out the fact that we do have these bishops that are just awful, that will pray and do these services with so-called Anglican women bishops that don't exist. They have these giant meetings. Here's Elpidophoros with some lesbian bishop and a bunch of Roman Catholics. I don't know who these people are. This looks like the fake Anglican wandering bishops again. Here's some bishop with some Anglican lesbian woman bishop. Here's some more of these wandering bishops, weirdos. If you don't know about the wandering bishops phenomenon, it's its own whole thing. We've covered it some in the past with regard to the world of the Sedevacantists, but the world of wandering bishops is a very sad world. I feel bad for the people that get involved in that. Having myself been at one point involved in Sedevacantist circles, you really are just dealing with a domain of spooks, kooks, and crooks. That's unfortunately what the whole wandering bishop world is. Not a whole lot different from the above ground world of the real bishops, but it's perhaps even more wacky and insane. You have a lot of people with mental problems, mental illness, weirdos, degens, creeps, conmen, people who create their own so-called Orthodox churches, as we saw with this. I don't even know what this is. I think I have heard of this, though, the American Orthodox Catholic Church, because if you get deep into the JFK stuff, we're not going deep into the JFK stuff tonight, but pretty much all of the authors will at some point touch upon the fact that David Ferry of JFK fame was a big mover and shaker in the world of the wandering bishops, or the Episcopi Vagantes. And he's not the only one, but this is also relates to Manson, because Manson was friends with Robert de Grimston, and de Grimston was formerly a Roman Catholic priest that became, the Process Church cult leader guy. So there's overlap with Manson as well, with some of these groups. But let me show you who I'm talking about with David Ferry. And yes, David Ferry was a gay dude. Shocker, his name's Ferry. I know that's hard to believe, but David Ferry was a gay dude who was involved in the anti-communist right-wing circles. And I'm just giving him as one example, right? There's plenty of these oddballs and weirdos in these circles. And the other thing you'll realize too is, like, a lot of the wandering bishop world, it ties into the spy world. A lot of these people are spies or they're informants. But the most interesting aspect of David Ferry is when you get into his relationship to the mafia. Carlos Marcello, who was, of course, the head of the New Orleans mafia. I wanted to see in here where it talks about the wandering bishops, because I know it's in here. And a lot of these groups, by the way, they'll change their name. So they'll be like the Holy Orthodox Church of North America, HOCNA. I want to say that was what David Ferry was involved in. And some of the groups, by the way, will sort of disappear, and they'll just rebrand as, now we are actually part of the true Orthodox Church, or the, super duper Sedevacantist Church now, or whatever. David Ferry was involved with wandering bishops. This is the independent clergy, part of schismatic microchurches that claim to have a valid apostolic succession. Decades later, here it is. This, by the way, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is in the National Archives. Okay, so here's the declassified National Archives of David Ferry and his connections to the JFK assassination. And it notes that he was consecrated by the American Orthodox Catholic Church. Oh, lo and behold. That's exactly what we have with, is that who this group was? Yes, the American Orthodox Catholic Church. So these are fake bishops. They get their degrees just like they get their sort of religious titles from diploma mills or bishop mills, sometimes they're called. You may have heard, for example, of Archbishop Nego Den Tuke, because amongst the Sedevacantists, there are these rival lines of so-called apostolic succession. There's the Tuke line of apostolic succession, and a lot of the Sedevacantists trace their lineage from Archbishop Nego Den Tuke, which, fascinatingly, at the time of Vietnam, was not a trad cat. He was actually a liberal, and he worked with the CIA during the Vietnam War. That's on record in Douglas Valentine's book. So we have a direct connection between Archbishop Tuke and the CIA. We also have another suspicious, phony character, Malachi Martin, at the end of his gigantic Keys of This Blood book, which is basically just a giant propaganda book. Malachi Martin says at the very end, predicting that there will be this gigantic sort of schism of Sedevacantists. Now, technically, yes, when he wrote that book, there were some Sedevacantist groups that existed in the early 90s, but traditional Catholicism was not as big of a movement as it was. By the way, Martin also predicted that there would be a future motu proprio where they would try to bring back the Latin Mass or allow it. That's exactly what Benedict XVI said and did. That has, of course, all been reversed post Francis and Leo. Just interesting tidbits that shows you that a lot of this stuff is planned way ahead of time. Of course, normie Roman Catholics don't know any of this. They don't care about this. They have no idea what they're getting into. They think that, well, they're all good guys in Rome and they just want the best for the church. And, well, no, dude, this is a gay mafia, man. They don't want the best for you. I mean, you're talking about an actual, gay dude who's involved in the by the way, old Catholics are also a big part of this. Let's talk a little bit about that right now, just because people don't know this. I mean, you've even got people writing essays here. The old Catholic plot against JFK. I mean, it wasn't actually old Catholics. It's like just these tiny little schismatic groups. That are known in the Latin term as the Episcopi Vagantes. Latin for the wandering bishops or the straight bishops. This is a person consecrated secretly or irregularly as a bishop outside of canon law. So this can happen in the Roman Catholic world, the Orthodox world, the schismatic, Coptic world. It can happen anywhere. You can have also Anglican wandering bishops. So, it's a fascinating subject. It's the more that you read and get into this kind of stuff, the less you would be inclined to go into Sedevacantism or non-canonical sorts of domains of these religions, because it's just so many just absolute lunatics. And then I think if you do get in this domain and you end up unfortunately down the rabbit hole in one of these groups, you eventually come to the point where you're like, there's just no way that God's true church is amongst these schizophrenics. I mean, it's just not possible. I cannot believe that Jesus expects me to find the last remnants of grace and the keepers of the true flame amongst a bunch of flamers. Okay, and a lot of these people are actually just gay dudes, literally. Okay, like David Ferry. So, enough on the wandering bishops. This, I think, is really the ultimate sort of kill shot for the whole Sedevacantist world. This whole world is that. So we don't have to do 5-hour refutations of the Diamond Brothers videos. Like, this is the world of the Diamond Brothers, dude. If this is the world that you want to go into, have fun with that. You're only torturing yourself, and you will find out that I am absolutely correct after several years of these domains of these quacks, kooks, and spooks. You'll notice here in the declassified National Archives, it says that David Ferry was made, quote, a bishop by John Martin in New Orleans, consecrated him, and then he was later deposed by all these like fake little groups, these little trailer park groups. They will consecrate and depose and excommunicate each other every other week. So, have fun trying to figure out this maze of lunacy amongst these people if you actually go into this domain. because you're all, it's worse than Protestants. Like this world, it's basically world is just Protestant. So yeah, I do not, I think Malachi Martin was a total phony. I've read a lot of his books over the years, and you know, nothing that Malachi Martin argues actually ends up making sense. If you, and I read that whole, we did a whole podcast 10 years ago on Keys of This Blood, 700, 800 page book, read the whole thing. Basically, it just says John Paul II is good, but he's surrounded by bad people and they're whispering in his ear and they're making him not be the trad that he really is, but he really is a good guy. And deep down, he's a trad. And by the way, it's the communists and Moscow are behind it. So that tells you right away that Malachi Martin is a mouthpiece of the CIA, 100%. No doubt about it. So when I see this, this is what is in my mind. This is fraud, spooks, kooks, crooks, and it's not accidental that they're all woke. Because again, I mean, a lot of this domain of the wandering bishops is gay dudes. They're downloaded. I mean, dudes that, you know, because of their sexual proclivities, had a harder time being amongst, you know, normal quote clergy. Many of whom are also gay, but they found it easier to kind of do it their own way, DIY, apostolic succession. And by the way, they're not just gay dudes. We're also talking about like PDF type people, right? That's the types of people running these sects, and they're very cult-like too. You'll find them also to have all the traits of cults. So I feel sorry for people that get into these and go these routes, but you may have heard of Gregory Baum. I want to remind you guys of this. Gregory Baum was the figure who helped to draft Nostra Aetate, and it, of course, is the most notorious of the Vatican II documents, particularly in regard to the relationship of the Roman Catholic Church to the world religions. And of course, it has the highlights that we've mentioned probably 1,000 times in the last 10 years, conservatively. You know, Hindus love God, quote unquote. Muslims, Christians, Jews, same plan of salvation. Children of Abraham, blah, 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 blah. Muslims, we love and adore them, blah, 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 blah. All the same stuff. Well, this guy, once his work was complete, well, he left the priesthood. He accomplished what he set out to do, because they did draft the document, at least I would assume, largely as he wanted it to be. And this has gotten so much traction, by the way, which is a good thing. Even Trent Horn was forced to address this in a recent video. Now, I don't watch Trent Horn videos. I haven't kept up with it. Been too busy going on large podcasts. But I will say this. This said large podcast is already very familiar with all of this and is not at all interested in the Vatican II religion. That wasn't because of me necessarily. Well, actually, I did play a role in a previous installment of this person's podcast that dealt with Vatican II. And I did help some of the people who produced that podcast to get some of the information on that. So I did play a role in that, so to speak. But we only sort of touched on Vatican II in passing. We didn't spend much time on it. We didn't spend much time on this either. I thought this might be something we would talk about, but it ended up just not being the subject matter. But I do want to mention it because this was new to me. I have read, of course, you know, the Sutton material when I was a research assistant in my grad work, before they gutted my library at my university. We had a pretty good historical, religious, philosophical, theological section. And I remember finding Warburg's diaries. We had a copy of Warburg's diaries, the banker Paul Warburg. And there were entries of letters that he had written to Lenin. And I will never forget, I read those letters, and he was very much an adamant supporter of the Bolshevik Revolution. So I knew that there was Rockefeller, Warburg, I want to say Schiff, banking support. I know.
The shit.
Yeah, I know. But Quigley debates that one. I do think that it's there though. But this I did not know. I'm not surprised, but I just have not seen this. But on page 175 of the Morton's biography of the Rothschilds, he talks about the animosity that the Rothschilds and the English and European Jews had for the czars and for Russia due to that strained relationship for many centuries. And so New Court, by the way, refers to in this passage the period when the Rothschilds began to be MPs and lords. So it took them many years to get to that status, but they had eventually achieved so much wealth and political influence that they were able to eventually become lords and members of parliament. And so this was called New Court when they had this sort of high level of influence. And but what's interesting too is that they weren't all libs. In fact, Nathan Rothschild, or Meyer Amschel Rothschild, I should say, and Nathan, they both figured out that because they had Meyer had 5 sons, and he sent them all throughout Europe, and he realized that actually I'm not going to have all conservative kids, I'm not going to have all liberal kids. So what they did was they had conservative and liberal kids, and they would send the liberal kids to countries that were a little more liberal, and they would send the conservative kids to the countries that were a little more conservative. So these are not stupid people. There's a very sophisticated intelligence apparatus people. This was the most fascinating element of the Rothschilds biography from Morton, which was that they really figured out how to create their own private intelligence network. And that's essentially what their banking empire was. They utilized a combination of German, Hebrew, and Yiddish to speak in code that they never divulged to anyone outside of the family as to how to decipher the code. I mean, I'm sure some code nerd could probably break it nowadays, but at least back then, people didn't take the time to try to figure it out. And there wasn't a whole lot of incentive to do it because anybody who kind of came against them, they would basically just buy them off. So they had that much money. So by the time that Lord Rothschild, the one in England, had achieved status as member of parliament, I can't remember, this might be before he's a lord, but he called attention to the tensions in Russia prior to 1917. This is, virtue was its own reward, because in 1917, when the Tsarist treasury defaulted on loans because of the Russian Revolution, the Rothschilds were not as hard hit as other banks, particularly banks in Europe and in England, were. Virtue is also not always its own reward. When the short-lived democratic government floated a liberty loan in St. Petersburg, New Court, that is the Rothschilds element of the British court, immediately telegraphed 1 million rubles to Lenin. Naturally, this was never repaid in one single bit from Lenin, whose government then followed. Natty was buried by then, but he had buried, meaning he was dead by this time. But had he lived, he would have written off that 1 million rubles as part of his good works. And then it goes on to talk about them running basically the British Red Cross and founding a bunch of hospitals and charity organizations. So they had figured out a long time ago, by the way, not just that you can set up these sort of foundations, fronts, charity organizations, but they'd also figured out that political revolution is very advantageous at many levels. So I did not know that Lord Rothschild had funded Lenin with 1 million rubles, although I did know about Rockefeller, Warburg, and Schiff. So
another little aspect is there's a book called The Dark Side of Power,
Mhm.
and it's about Arm & Hammer.
I did know about Arm & Hammer. Yeah, I knew about him.
Yeah, and Arm & Hammer's brother, his name was Victor. And in that book, they say that Victor was the one who delivered the money from the Schiffs to Lenin.
Oh, wow.
So I've only seen it in that book. I just wanted to mention
Yeah.
that as a little side note. But yeah, Arm & Hammer, who's Army Hammer's grandma.
I was going to say,
grandfather, the
Army,
founder.
yeah, Army Hammer is all over Twitter because of all the craziest shit I've ever seen, apparently Worski was supposed to interview Army Hammer for his movie that is posted on X. This is just like timelines and people are overlapping in the craziest ways that yes, Andy Worski is going to interview Army Hammer about his movie. I don't know if that actually happened, but I saw that on Twitter yesterday. I was like, what is happening? What is going on? Did anybody?
So
Go ahead.
grandfather, who was like a Jewish Russian oil baron,
Mm-hmm.
who somehow was allowed to deal with both Russia and the U.S. during the time of communism, when allegedly communism is the biggest evil on the planet.
Right.
And his brother was the one in this book they claim to deliver the money to from the shifts to the to Lenin.
That's crazy. Maybe I got trolled. Maybe Worski was joking, but did he have Army Hammer on Kino Casino? Let me see. Oh, maybe I got it wrong, and I was thinking Kino Casino, but it's Kino Corner, who is I think I met this dude one time. I'm trying to remember. Yes, I did. I know this guy. Okay, so my mistake. I was getting Kino Casino mixed up with Kino Corner.
So I've seen most of your films. I've watched a lot of them.
Yes, I met this dude in Austin. He's like a big movie buff dude, the Kino Corner guy. So still just as weird, even though it's not. I guess that makes a little bit more sense than Worski because he's a big film buff guy. But yeah, so he interviewed Army Hammer and Uwe Boll, who directs a lot of these kind of weird movies. But I'm guessing the idea here was let's test out premiering movies on X. And if I want to say, did Elon post this movie? This is a very bizarre development here. Did you guys seen this? That supposedly, maybe I'm getting trolled too. You never know what to believe when you see these posts, like, because there's so much fake. No, here it is right here. So Elon premiered the movie Citizen Vigilante, which stars Army Hammer. I don't know what the movie's about, but I'm guessing that this is like the first time we've seen a movie premiere via X, or at least that I'm aware of. So really, really wild stuff going on out here. Just crazy level stuff. But I know that the Kino Corner guy has visited Orthodox churches, because when we went to Austin, he came to my event. Oh yeah, he filmed BG Cumby doing BG stand-up at my event when Scooter was there to film me for the Tucker show. Kino Corner came to film BG Cumby, and he was telling me when we were eating afterwards, he was like, oh yeah, I've been checking out Orthodox churches. I don't know if he converted, but he's definitely a mega film buff dude. By the way, Trump, man, what a character. Trump is the boomer. I've decided Trump is just, if boomers have an archetype, it's Trump. Trump is the archetype of the boomer. Today, I just thought this was funny. He's like, the communists are finally making their move. I've been waiting and preparing. It's easy to be a communist. You just say, I'll give you everything. But that means that you're taking it from other people. For 1,000 years, communism hasn't worked. Now, what is he talking about 1,000 years? I mean, communism is older than 1,000 years. So, I mean, it goes back to, like, I guess you say Plato, but like that's older than 1,000 years. Trump. And who is the communist of 1,000 years ago that Trump's even talking about here? So, it's like the ultimate boomer post where it's like the entire internet is talking about Israel and, America's relationship to Israel, and then Trump comes in with like peak boomer going back to the Cold War to talk about the communists are taking over. Granted, yeah, there is Mom Donnie, I get it, that there are these elements of socialism, communism, and yes, I know that technocracy is Fabian socialism, and that's kind of a form of communism, but it's like this post is so just freaking boomer, dude. It's crazy. Like, I couldn't resist the boomer levels. This is like boomer level infinity, right? Because it's like as if we're still in the Cold War. The Cold War is this eternal thing that you can always refer back to for the boomers, right? It's like last resort, right? When everything else is pointing, 99% of everything else is pointing another direction, the boomer can still say, but the Cold War, we were in the Cold War with Moscow and the Soviets. That's not my Trump, by the way. That's just a random boomer. And yeah, so also everyone's making a big deal of the Tucker discussion with that Protestant dude. I did want to comment on this just because the entire X was discussing this. I do disagree with some of the points that Tucker has when it comes to Islam. I suspect that when people feel like, you know, the neocon stuff that they believe for so long is not true, the tendency is to then jump to sort of the opposite position. I did this myself in the 2000s and 2010s after I learned about the Big Nine event. No longer believe the official story about that. My immediate assumption was, oh, well, I guess Muslims were all of the, you know, they were all sort of patsies and they were tools and dupes and they were, you know, the scapegoats. I didn't like Islam or ever become Muslim, but I didn't know about Islam. I didn't know the history of Islam. We didn't even get into that until, you know, as you guys know, 2017, 18, when we started doing the Muslim debate. So, and of course, I'm still not I'm saying I'm like an expert on Islamic history or anything like that. But I do know that what the JD Hall guy said, oh, the Ottomans were nice to Orthodox and they like let them be or whatever. That's not really true. It's actually, you have centuries of Ottoman dominance of Orthodox lands and it's all over the place. There's periods when they were flaying people alive, like ripping their skin off. We have icons commemorating these events. There was periods of ethnic cleansing of Bulgarians, of Greeks, as well as the Armenian genocide, the Young Turks, all that kind of stuff. But there were also periods in what's called the millet system. For those that don't know, it really kind of, it seems to me, and again, I'm not an expert in this area of history. I have had some courses and read some books on it, but it seems as if it kind of depended upon the Sultan and it depended upon what was going on. So if Greeks or Bulgarians, or if they revolted against their Ottoman ruler, then there would be a horrible response. Now, when they were tolerated in the millet system under what's called the ethnarch, and this is part of what contributes to some of the ethno, quote unquote, philautism in the Orthodox world, is that some of these areas, especially Greece, they were under a forced ethnarch policy of the Ottomans. And so again, it depended on the Sultan. Some of the sultans were would take little boys and put them in their harems and turn them into janissaries. Some of the sultans were more tolerant, but even in the tolerant periods, you were Orthodox were second-class citizens. They were not supposed to proselytize. They were not supposed to. They could only do the services and build churches under certain restrictions, and they had to pay the jizya, so which is the tax, the Muslim tax to the non-believers or the so-called people of the book. So it depended on the Sultan's swing, the Sultan of swing, exactly. So, so there's some truth and some bullcrap in what whoever, I don't even know who JD Hall is. I have no idea who that person is. So I know that he went on Tucker and they had that discussion. But I don't know who that dude is. I'm guessing he's some sort of Protestant. Is he a pastor or I don't know, but it is not true that it was like hunky dory, but it's not true that it was like always, total torture or whatever. So, and even the Salafis, for example, they didn't like the Ottomans because the British Empire used the Salafi Wahhabi groups against the Ottomans because they felt that the Ottomans weren't real Muslims, that it was just a tool of politics for them. So, that's why you would have these varying levels, I think, of how seriously Islam was enforced by whatever sultan. So, and I'm not a history of the sultans, so I can't tell you all the different ones. I know Mehmet was particularly bad. I know he was pretty bad against the Orthodox, but I can't tell you all the histories of the various sultans. I do know about Janissaries. I know about all that, but we had a huge viral interview with Lord Voldemort and Tucker that went pretty viral, tons and tons of clips everywhere. I saw one that had like 10 million views, I think. I don't know if I shared that one, but that was interesting because it was like an hour-long discussion where it's kind of difficult to disagree with just the basic principles that Tucker laid out, even if you're a boomer, because, you know, I mean, probably people know Tucker's dad was Daily Caller. He was, you know, Voice of America, all that stuff. And so he grew up in the ethos of the neocon, you know, conservative, you know, friendly, adjacent to the White House type lifestyle. And then eventually, you know, for a lot of people, the Big Nine event, you know, tends to really sort of put cracks in that paradigm if you begin to question the Big Nine event. That happened to me, right? I was raised, you know, Baptist, GOP, conservative, and then, you know, getting into issues around 9/11 really got me kind of questioning my, you know, Baptist GOP attitudes that I was raised with, which is not to say that I'm some sort of liberal now, but far from it. But really, I think it was a huge catalyst for putting people down the pathway of questioning all sorts of, you know, status quo type positions that we were raised with, especially the relationship to Israel, the relationship to, you know, Russia during the Cold War, all of these things, the boomer mind matrix, you know, who the villains of World War II were, etc. The boomer mind matrix has begun to collapse, even to the effect that, and again, the same people pushing a lot of what we hear that's everybody thinks is ridiculous. Well, those same people were the same people pushing the Big Nine narrative. They were the same people pushing the Russia collusion hoax. They were the same people pushing the stabbies, you see. And as part of her leaving her job, Tulsi Gabbard declassified, I guess, whatever was going on from internal stuff with the Russia collusion, which we already all knew was fake. It was made up. Fake. Yeah, I said it like day one. I was like, this is just classic neocon propaganda. And the same people push Russiagate, by the way, who are supposed to, like, you know, Trump people now, like Mark Levin and Shapiro and the never Trumper people, right, who are now mad at Trump because he's not towing the line, at least verbally, like he's supposed to with Israel. He's made everybody mad in the last few days over the Israel comments, bitching about it. Once again, this points to a supra-party power structure, a bureaucracy of intelligence, deep state bureaucrats, and above them, steering committee, banking, corporate oligarchs who control the country. It's that simple. So we got to get over the fake conservative bullcrap of Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, who tell us still there's no conspiracies. I don't get into giant conspiracies. It's not a giant conspiracy. It's literally just oligarchical control. I mean, that's not a conspiracy. That's just actually how we're governed, you see. So, briefly, I don't think I've done a live stream since we had the interactions with Joe Heschmeyer, who was terribly offended that I didn't remember his name. Well, he has a weird name. Herschel, I thought it was like a Herschelmeyer. So on some previous podcast, I called him Joe Goober or something like that. That tremendously offended him. And when I asked if he would like to do a debate, since he debated Doug Wilson, you can all guess what type of a response I got. You're a bad person. You're so mean, blah, 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 blah. Now, these same people in this the Cath Inc. sphere, right, the so-called conservative, neoconservative, Roman Catholic world, we used to call them the neo-trads or the whatever. the Novus Ordo, so-called trads, they will appear on stage with the worst people imaginable. It doesn't matter how crazy of a Muslim you are. It doesn't matter how crazy of a feminist, blue-haired, destiny, erudite freak you are. They're all fine to debate. But the evil ortho bros who make a fat joke or this or that, they are the absolute worst. You cannot be platformed with these people, nor can you platform these people, even though, according to the theology of Shameless Joe here, we have much closer theology, according to Vatican II, to him than Doug Wilson. So from the ecumenist vantage point, we're supposed to be like really close to him. Doug Wilson is like way over here, but he's fine to go do debates with Doug Wilson, you see. But if I say anything, of course, and it's just so played out, like it's like 10 years of the same responses of, I would not platform you, I will not be seen on the you are a evil, horrible person, you make fat jokes. It's they suddenly turns into social justice warriors, right? They're all about mean speak. But by the way, they will then turn around and do all the same mean speak to the ortho bros. He literally turns around and is like, you ortho bros, you're all faking gay. Well, I thought it was evil to say people are faking gay. But now you turn around and do the exact same thing. Well, but see, it's justified when they do it. So it's the same old thing. Oh, and it's like, come on, dude, this is just cowardice. Like, you're afraid. And by the way, like, I don't know what he's wearing here in his little Lord Fauntleroy outfit here. In his jovial Renaissance Lord Fauntleroy outfit. But, I mean, this is comedy on its own. So, like, these are not serious people, right? And no, I'm not a serious person on purpose. I am seriously not a serious person, and I acknowledge that. These people want to be seen as serious people. This person is so ridiculous. He also, by the way, will not debate Tim Gordon either. So it's not just me. He absolutely despises Tim Gordon. Will not debate Tim Gordon over because he has a form of Christian feminism, right? So just like Trent Horn, Joe Heschmeyer has the sort of positive Christian feminism view, and Tim Gordon really wants to debate him on that. But Tim thinks that, and I think this is probably true, Tim thinks that amongst the Cath Inc. people, the establishment sort of Catholic Answers people, whether it's Trent Horn or him, they sort of are given orders of like who they can and can't talk to, which is a little surprising because I didn't expect that Trent Horn would be willing to do the 2 debates with me in, I think, December. But he seems to be willing to do it. So yes, we're supposed to have 2 debates with Trent Horn in December, 2 debates with David Wood sometime in, I forget, October. I don't remember when. Somewhere. So Orlando in October, I think, somewhere in there. 2 debates with David Wood. So if you guys are looking forward to that, get your, whenever the tickets are available for DebateCon in Orlando with David Wood, and then DebateCon in Phoenix in December with Trent Horn. So, and then I think I will be at DebateCon in a month in Dallas or Austin, I forget, Dallas, I think, to debate Muslims. And possibly, so suddenly, I don't, like, my fake retirement, somehow this suddenly led to, like, now everyone wants to debate. Of course, except for Joe Heschmeyer. So now everybody wants to debate again, even though we had basically no debates for so long. Now, when I say everybody wants to debate, it's not anybody that you've heard of, except for Trent and David Wood. I forget the Muslim, Waleed or Jajmi, I forget his name. Somebody, forget the Muslim, but it was not a Muslim I was super familiar with. But it's not, there's no Wes Huff, there's no Mike Wingers, there's no Ruslan, there's no God Logic, there's no IP, there's no Gavin Ortlund or Doug Wilson debates. Although I did tell somebody who asked, again, would you debate Doug Wilson? Yeah, okay, fine, I'll debate Doug Wilson, sure. But I don't think Doug Wilson will do it. So, welcome to FDA in the house. Shout out to FDA in the house. I'm sorry, I've been yapping so long. I've been making a lot of people wait. So, Will, what's up, man? What's on your mind, Will? Will Wheaton. Will Wheaton. What's happening? What's happening on deck with Riker and Picard?
Hey Jay, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Hey, there's a really good book I think you should read. Maybe you've read it, I don't know. It's by Joseph Bottom. It's called An Anxious Age, The Post-Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of America. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
It's a really good book. It's actually written by a Catholic, where he basically analyzes the poster children of the various mainline Protestant denominations and touches a little bit on like low churches and whatnot. And basically, and it came out, I think, in like the 2010s, like 2014. And he just explains like where like the people who are descendants of these like Episcopalians, Dutch Reformed and all that, like what are they doing today? And the thesis of the book is that like all these people, they essentially have the exact same worldview as their ancestors. It's just they've removed the Christian elements.
No, this is actually, if you read the Orthodox guy's book, G.M. Davis's book on Antichrist, he has a whole chapter that says that very thing.
Okay.
Yeah, he argues it's Antichrist by G.M. Davis, and he argues that the American Protestant Puritan ethic is actually the basis for social justice warriors.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's the name of the book? Rebecca Dillhunty recommended me that one.
You talking about the Bottom book or the G.M. Davis book?
The Davis book.
It's just called Antichrist.
Basically, the Puritans.
Yeah,
were...
it's called Antichrist. It's Father Hears has published it. It's Uncut Mountain. It's just called Antichrist.
Maybe no, a different one. I need to, but there's another book
Okay.
that has that same kind of thesis that the modern kind of liberal and woke comes out of Puritanism.
I think it's this one. I mean, there could be another one, but Davis's book is called, the full title is Antichrist, The Fulfillment of Globalization is the full book.
Ah, nice.
And it's just that I haven't read the entire book, but I went directly to that chapter because I thought that sounded fascinating. I read that chapter, and it's somewhere early. I think it's early on, maybe in the middle of the book somewhere there. But basically, he's just saying that when they got rid of God in the theology, they kept this idea that you have to basically save the world through political, social, programs.
Yeah. There's an interesting part where like all these kind of the usual suspects, right, and like the stereotypes we associate with these sort of people, like they do think that. I mean, even if they say that they're not religious, like they do believe that like they are saved in a way, right? Like where they know, like they're woke, right? Like they're aware of all this, the mean, evil, ugly corporate Republican man, Ronald Reagan, Christian theocracy, that's going to take over America and the world and whatnot. And they're against that, and so they're saved.
Yeah, that's a good point. That they're sort of like politically, civilizationally saved because they have this idea that like white democratic Western liberalism. I mean, white people, shit lib white people is the highest form of civilization that has to be exported to the rest of the world to quote save the world. Yes.
Right, and they don't realize that like they're the same civilization as like the people that founded the country, and they view that civilization, even though they don't realize that it's the same civilization. Oh, that's actually the worst. That's like the worst.
Yeah, so
America.
Yeah.
When they are white Christian America.
Well, it's like that you keep the city on a hill ideology, but you remove the theology, and then it becomes a political project of political salvation.
And also the fake moral pietism.
Yes. Great point. Exactly.
The book also talks about that quite a bit. Yeah.
Because they're extremely moral.
Well, immoral, but like in their own idea.
Right. Like the morality. What are for a liberal?
Like the greatest sin is racism, right?
greatest sin, the two
Yeah,
greatest
no, actually,
sins and judging somebody.
yeah, in the book it said the mortal sins are smoking and obesity.
Yeah. And we've been saying that, right? Like that whole idea of American fundamentalist ideology. I don't smoke, don't drink, don't chew, and I don't like people that do. Like that's all.
Liberals really bought into it.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's another book. It's written by Carl Truman. You know, the Westminster professor. It's called The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self. That came out a couple of years ago, and that's like a similar thing, but he's doing it from kind of a quote-unquote Orthodox Presbyterian kind of viewpoint.
Interesting.
Now, what's really interesting and ironic is that liberals are always crying about it's the puritanical sexual suppression. We had a revolution. I'd be like, but that's you. That's your guys. The Puritans were your. Not saying that, you know, those who weren't Puritans were open sexually, but that puritanicalism is wokeism.
Oh yeah, because the book talks about how like there was a shift away from because Puritans, like sexual sins is like the worst thing ever, and it shifted from that into like these dietary things, right? Like yoga chicks.
Yeah.
With I don't eat all this, blah blah blah. And it's like,
well, that and the environment, right? Oh, you're polluting the environment, so you're doing social sins by
eco-terrorism.
Exactly.
And notice too, wasn't it the Puritans as well? Now, Puritans are Anabaptists, right? Would we classify them?
No, they're not.
No, they're separate groups. But the Anabaptists were part of this too. That's why I'm mixing them up.
They were so they had a very similar sort of ethic because both Puritans and Anabaptists.
They got rid of holy days, and they replaced them with secular. So if you go,
that was the Jacobins. So there's overlap though because the Puritans did not believe in Christmas or Easter. They thought holy days were idolatry. But the Puritans did believe in a form of theocracy in the sense of like, God is the direct, head of the government. That's the Cotton Mather type of view. Cotton Mather would try to make, Christian laws for his colony. But the Anabaptists, the only difference there is that while they shared a lot of the same sort of moral sexual ethics of the Puritans, they believed that the state was a satanic institution. So the Puritans and the Anabaptists hated each other.
No, but what I'm saying is they were both the same in the sense that they replaced feast days, which is where we get holidays, holy days, with secular holidays.
You're right. The Puritans did not believe in holy days, except that they were inconsistent because they thought that you had to keep the Sabbath, and they thought that you could have Thanksgiving for whatever reason. So they actually did introduce their own versions of holy days.
And you can have Gunpowder Day.
And Juneteenth. They're
dude.
But if you talk, I'm just being overly nuanced here because FDA, if you talk to a strict Calvinist, they'll tell you that, no, we don't believe in any holy days except for the Lord's Day, which is the Sabbath, and Thanksgiving.
Well, what I'm saying, they believe in holidays. And I'm saying holidays etymologically derives from holy days. And there was this bait and kind of switch on that to replace the holy day with secular days, like,
Well, that's the Jacobins did that, but
and Lincoln did,
civic religion.
Civic religion, yeah. And that's why we have eventually the connection I'm trying to make. Now you have Juneteenth, right?
Yeah.
And we're all worshiping secular things because it was secular by the Puritans and the Anabaptists. Both were in on that movement.
Except that I'm just saying that if you argue with a Calvinist Puritan, they will tell you, following the Westminster Confession, we do not allow or believe in any holy days. They're absolutely adamantly opposed to holy days, except for the Sabbath. And they're inconsistent because they would say that Thanksgiving is allowed.
So they don't celebrate Memorial Day?
Well, they would just simply say that those are not religious days. So
That's what I'm saying is it replaced religious
I know it
days
becomes
because
that.
they don't believe
I
in holy
understand.
days
I understand,
with-
yeah. It becomes that. I'm just saying that they will argue we don't support that, even though it does eventually become that. Because the Westminster Confession is we used to have debates over this, right? Because, for example, when I was at my Presbyterian church, our pastor was very adamant that you cannot celebrate Christmas or Easter.
No.
And we had this argument at church where it was like, well, wait a minute, don't we celebrate Thanksgiving? And his argument was like, well, the Puritans celebrated it because there's nothing wrong with thanking God. And it was like, but you've made it a holy day. So we had a huge debate over that, and the whole thing was like, well, we're just following the Westminster Confession, which says you have basically the Lord's Day, which is Sunday, and then there's no other holy days. And so
I noticed you get this in JWs too.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's another thing I wanted to say, Jay. I remember I brought up to you my Jewish lawyer lineage, right, with Carlos Marcello. I talked to my grandpa about it, and oh boy, was it really just like that opening scene of National Treasure, if you remember that, when he's like talking to his grandpa.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so his grandfather,
Uh-huh.
right? Or no, sorry, my great grandfather's father. He was born in the Ukraine when it was under the Russian Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually fought in the Russo-Japanese War.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, so he, and I mean, obviously they were like forced to do it. And so he and a group of other like 20 Ukrainians or something like that, they were like, all right, screw this. We don't want to fight this war. And so they literally walked from one end of Russia to the other, essentially, to get back home. And only 3 of them made it back.
Damn, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah, dude, some of them...
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were done. I didn't know you had more to say, but feel free to come back in, Will, if you want to. It's funny because in the Vatican Spies book, I've gotten up to the end of the beginning of the Cold War, the end of World War II. I didn't realize how, and this was in the Metrokin Archives section that we covered too, I didn't realize how useful uniates were. Uniates were a massive element of Western espionage and soft power, especially through the Ukraine. And in fact, it went beyond even just the CIA. The Vatican actually trained its own Rusicum operatives, especially many of them were Jesuits, to essentially go into Russia to try to make them papist again. And you could imagine, of course, the CIA would be like, well, yeah, absolutely, we support that. So, this was happening under, it happened under Tiny Mustache Man and into the Cold War, because Tiny Mustache Man basically wanted to split split Ukraine off strategically for his own purposes. And that's why there's so many of the neo-in people in Ukraine, is because that's the old Galen Tiny Mustache Man networks, right? So then when he lost World War II, the CIA folded all that into Western intelligence, including all the Ukraine networks, which were Reinhard Galen's networks. And so then they just added into that the older Vatican strategy of sending Jesuits into Ukraine, into Odessa, into Kiev, into Russia.
Now, Jay, do me a favor. Now, tie this all into Fatima real quick. I was actually thinking about some guy had called in about on Alex stream or something about Fatima. And, anyways, just thinking about the conversations that we had about during when was Fatima? 40? Was it 40?
No, Fatima is prior to World War One.
Okay, so I know what happened. They used that in the Cold World propaganda.
Yeah, it was very useful in the Cold War. Yeah.
Yep, forgot about. I was trying
because
to
they said that Our Lady was predicting all the errors coming out of Russia would infect the whole world. So, but I can tell you right here because I just read the Ukraine section. So, the missionaries that were sent into the Ukraine were. The CIA actually funds the Vatican Russian Pontifical College, and this is, I think it's known as the Rusicum. So for those that don't know, right, like in Rome, like the Vatican has a lot of these, and it doesn't have to just be in Rome, but they will have sort of specific institutes and organizations set up for certain areas or regions. So one of these was for Russia. The Vatican had it's called the Rusicum, or the Russian College, right? And so this is right here is actually founded by Pius the 11th, right before Vatican II and all that. And this was a hub that not just the CIA, but also French intelligence, all the Western intelligence agencies were able to utilize these Jesuits that were trained to go into Russia. So from 1949 to 1958, according to the Vatican Spies text, the first group that they sent, it says they sent like 8 priests into Russia through Ukraine in the late 1940s from the Rusicum. So that's just one example right at the beginning of the Cold War, at the end of World War II. These were known as underground uniate priests. They helped to establish the uniate catacomb churches, because you begin to have Stalin persecuting. There was one guy who was a Russian operative named Prince Turkul, Turkul, and he was actually a double agent. He was working for the NKVD. One of these operations you could look up is called Operation Minos, Minos. And the CIA wanted to use these uniates and Jesuits to push and to help put pressure on the NKVD and the fall of the Soviets. So they were already beginning right after World War II. They were already pushing for using religious groups. And if you didn't hear the analysis I did of the Mitrokin text, but if you don't know, Father Deegan, that's a bunch of Soviet documents that came out of the Soviet Union that were published. Most people believe they're authentic, so they're not. But if you remember when I did that interview with Metropolitan Jonah about the Russian church and how the Russian church has this 3-tier, or that Soviets had a 3-tier status of the bishops and priests.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that comes out of the Mitrokin archives text, the way that the KGB structured their operative or their active measures against the West. And so the Soviets saw the Vatican as basically just a tool for espionage. That was their perspective. So that's why they saw it very useful to use, especially the uniates, because uniates were already anti-Orthodox because they were obviously aligned with the papacy. So the CIA saw them as a much more useful tool than just trying to recruit Russian priests or Russian bishops in Russia. It was a lot easier to send in and support uniates. So that's not to say they didn't, though. If you know, when we covered, there was a Reformed Baptist pastor who was working with the CIA and British intelligence. There was Jehovah's Witnesses were used as well in Russia, and the CIA supported the Catacomb Church, not because they had beliefs aligning, but they were basically, you want to support any group that can be a problem for the Soviets. So since the Soviets had dominant influence, kind of like the Ottomans did, right? We wouldn't say that the Orthodox churches under the Ottomans, they were all evil, Ottoman operatives. Well, in the same way, not everybody in the Russian church was a member of the KGB. As we saw from the archives, they mainly focused on very important bishops. They didn't really care about the average priests. The only way to get in trouble was if you really spoke out and, went against the Soviet or the KGB. Then you might get imprisoned. You might get taken to the Gulag. Now, I'm talking about under the Stalin period. I'm not talking about under the Bolshevik period. They just tried to crush everybody, burn, destroy all the churches. Stalin in the 1940s had a revitalization project, not making him a good guy, just that he saw that the Bolshevik policies were so destructive that he thought we should at least have a church. So I'll run all the bishops. I'll try to control them as best I can. But this idea of like destroying all the churches is just not going to work. The whole society ends up collapsing. So Stalin's revitalization project rebuilt thousands of churches in the 1940s. They basically made sure that the Moscow Patriarchate, especially, right, that was basically your KGB bishops for the most part. There were some others, but yeah. So that's why that talk that we did, I think, is very enlightening, and it really just solidifies everything that Metropolitan Jonas said when we did that interview. Raise, what's up, man? Raise, what's on your mind? People in the chat are saying Jay said he filmed something for Tucker. No, I'm talking. That was like 4 years ago, man. 3 years ago. So I'm talking about 3 years ago in Austin when Scooter had me on the last episode of Tucker's Fox show. That's when that guy that interviewed Army Hammer came to our event. That's what I was talking about. Raise, what's up, man? You want to talk? Okay. McLovin, what's up, McLovin?
Hello, Jake. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh. What's up, man?
Okay. I have a question, and you might be able to speak to this better than I can.
Sure.
So I was kind of learning about the Presbyterian and Lutheran back and forth on the spiritual presence in the Eucharist. And one of the objections that the Presbyterians had, or the Calvinists had, was that real presence is not possible because it's not possible for Christ's human nature to be present in all these different churches that are consecrating Eucharists all at the same time. Would that not be, like, to me when I heard that, I was immediately thinking, this is Nestorian. Does that follow?
I mean, it's kind of Nestorian. I wouldn't say it's totally the same as Nestorianism, but you could see the possibility of it kind of leaning Nestorian for sure. I mean, we do think that the Eucharist is a mystery, right? So we can't like ever give up that element of the fact that, there's obviously a mystery going on as to how, but I think one way to understand it is to think of, rather than Christ's physical body becoming omnipresent, it's more so that in the divine liturgy, because it's heaven on earth, we are actually brought up there to his presence. So space and time are bent such that we are actually all in the presence directly of Christ in heaven. That's the idea. Heaven has come down to earth. So it's not that the incarnation and the Eucharist, as Luther thought, makes the humanity of Christ omnipresent. Rather, we're brought up there to the presence of Christ.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but most Protestant groups would say, like, Christ doesn't even have, like, his human nature in heaven.
Well, that's Nestorian. That's totally heretical. So, they can think that, but that would be absolutely, like, crazy little heresy. So... But I don't think most of them think it through. You do have some Protestant famous theologians like Francis Turretin. He actually thought that. He thought that in the ascension, Christ shed his human nature. So sometimes they do tend to think in that sort of Gnostic or Nestorian way for sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, what's crazy to me is that they kind of, like, when you mentioning not thinking about it, they're making these claims about, human nature, and maybe I could be incorrect about this, but, they're making claims about this human nature. I'm like, but isn't, like, nominalism so crucial to your view of, like, salvation and what Christ did? And you're claiming there's a universal that is expressed through particulars.
Yeah, except that I think with those people, there's varying levels of consistency amongst various Reformation people, and even amongst one Reformation person, they might contradict themselves. So, for example, I don't even know what Martin Luther's position on universals even is, but he was influenced by nominalism when it comes to justification and your legal status and all that. But there were some reformers and Puritans who were totally realist. They were actually basically Platonists. So you can read like Stephen Charnock, who's a famous Puritan Calvinist theologian. Like he's 100% a realist. So it's not like all of them adopted nominalism. It's rather that the doctrine of justification itself has the assumption of nominalism to make it work, But John Wycliffe was a radical realist. He was not at all a nominalist. Charnock was a realist. So you can find Reformation people who just take pieces to make it work, and many of them might not even know that they're influenced by nominalism. So does that make sense? So we should we a lot of times I think we are attributing to a lot of these people more consistency than they actually have.
Yeah, and people asking you about orthodoxy will reveal that pretty quickly. You try to explain terms to them, and you're sitting there for 2 hours, and they're still not understanding even like what normative authority is.
Yeah, and I think that might be, this big interview that we did. My only concern, which I think the quality of it's fine, but my only concern is that it might have been a little too high tier for a massive normie audience. But you just never know. Sometimes those really heavy, dense.
Well, welcome to my world, Jay.
Yeah, right. Sometimes those heavy.
I write papers and people are like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah. Well, that could also just be that you're just putting down like word salad, and nobody even like you're just making up the words that aren't even real words. I'm just joking. We all know FDA would never do that.
What is philosophy but semantic sorcery?
I was going to say, what if you wrote a whole paper, like a grad paper, and it was all just like made up words, but you actually sourced everything? Like it looked like it was really professional, but it was all just word salad. That'd actually be funny. But yeah, exactly like FDA says, a lot of, I said that when I did the Ludwell talk. I did a talk about how philosophy was, like you were saying, word salad. And then there was these people who were like, "Oh, I noticed that Jay, he hates philosophy now, and he thinks that it's all worthless. So he actually is anti-philosophy." And I was like, "No, you missed the whole point."
Yeah, never any nuance with these people. It's never the middle ground. They can never find the middle way.
Well, our point, as your point is, right, is secular philosophy is a dead end. We're not saying that.
Well, that's what St. Paul says.
Yeah, exactly.
Vain philosophy built on the traditions of men, not true philosophy.
Not all, philosophical questions.
Which is interesting because Vogelin says the sophos, love of wisdom, really is philotheos.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well put. Guys, if you want to support the stream, you can do so through super chats. Super chats are preferably through Streamlabs, but you can also do it natively through YouTube as well. Jose, what's up, man? Everybody's still trying to figure out what podcast I went on. Yes, it was Larry King. No, I went on Donahue. I went on Sally, Jesse, Raphael, you guys. I can't believe you guys didn't figure out.
Geraldo Rivera.
It was Geraldo. I can't believe you guys didn't figure that out. It's obvious. Clearly it was. I went on Oprah in 1985. Jose, what's up, man? You want to unmute? Jose, last chance.
Hello.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. What's up?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to quickly update you because, what do you call it? Tide and at least the oligarchic politics of Texas have shifted. So the Wilkes brothers, who had put the initial money behind, what was it called? The Daily Wire.
Daily Wire, yeah.
Completely backed out of politics completely. That's why the Daily Wire's been doing so many layoffs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, no, essentially for the last 10 years, as far as Texan politics was concerned, the last, what do you call it? Essentially, the entire state was effectively ruled by the Wilkes brothers, as well as, what's his name, Tim Dunn, as essentially a de facto triumvirate, similar to the triumvirate of Rome. And they had a falling out that started up in 2024. Apparently, it was Nick Fuentes that caused it. I don't exactly know the details, but I just know he was involved. But the Wilkes brothers decided to pull out completely. So they've completely backed out of not just the state politics, but they've withdrawn stuff from the media stuff that they're involved with, including Breyer University, Daily Wire, etc. So it's interesting because right now there's like 9 different oligarchs who are trying to compete to essentially take over the empty space that the Wilkes brothers have left in the
Yeah, that's what I said. People don't realize that it's not just these voices. Like there's huge money behind the ideology of these goobers that you see in the so-called alternative media.
Yep, no, it's very true. What I also find interesting is despite being Aryan heretics, they're apparently not, they're not pro-Zionist the way that Tim Dunn was. So apparently there was pressure from the Wilkes brothers' children and grandchildren to back out of the political stuff they were supporting. And that played a role.
And was that because they were fans of Fuentes?
No, Nick Fuentes was actually got involved. For some reason, he was involved. He was in some bunch of Groypers were involved in one of one of the organizations that the Wilkes brothers had running here in Texas. So somehow Nick Fuentes apparently met with Tim Dunn. Tim Dunn didn't know who he was. And then Tim Dunn got freaked out after the fact because Nick Fuentes is not a Zionist, and Tim Dunn is a diehard, absolutely diehard evangelical Zionist.
Interesting.
And so that resulted in a falling out between the two, or between him and the brothers.
Good. I mean, I'm glad that that's fallen apart, because that whole operation was retarded. So.
Agreed. And so now what you have, it's interesting because one of the 9 oligarchs who are trying to fill up that vacuum he's a Pakistani fellow. I keep forgetting his name. I wrote an article on it a while ago, but he's a Pakistani fellow who's one of the big money behind the building of mosques throughout Texas.
Oh, weird.
And what's fascinating is this guy is also one of the biggest money guys behind Greg Abbott, which is why Greg Abbott is officially not supportive of Islam, but in reality, he just lets the door open for them to build as much as they want.
Money behind Greg Abbott.
Yep. If you want to check it out, I actually I did start up a Substack about 2 months ago. There's an article, I believe it came out June 1st, that I published it on the various oligarchs who are competing for that empty space. But right now, it's fascinating because Tim Dunn is trying to solidify everything under his control, but he doesn't have the level of resources alone that he and the Wilkes brothers all put together. So it'll be an interesting couple of years in Texas to see who ends up being the new top dog of Texan state politics.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. Really good intel there, Jose. He's always got spot on analysis. Super smart dude. Just basic search, I'm assuming it's this person, Syed Javaid Anwar, oil and gas tycoon, founder and CEO of Midland Energy, has donated many millions of dollars to Greg Abbott. So, interesting. Yeah, all these people think that Ben Shapiro just got an audience, or no, dude, these people are massively supported, dude. Remember, it came out that basically they just put millions of dollars into pushing Ben Shapiro on Facebook over the years, and then that's how he became this supposed media person that we're supposed to listen to. It's these people are put up there, dude. They're you guys haven't figured this out yet, but actually no, boomers don't. The boomer mindset, and a lot of that evangelical Zionist stuff is just still holdover boomer mindset. Their whole mindset is well, if you got a fancy set, you're doing something right. You must be telling the truth, because if you knew what you was talking about, they put you up there on the TV. Right, that's the whole mindset. But really, that's how you think the world works? Let's see what this says. The podcast were saying that Greg Abbott's donor helped to establish 50 mosques throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Interesting. All right, who's next? Anybody you want to call in? We all lost FDA. We lost you, FDA, but you're welcome to come back. Crom, what's up, Crom? We have Conan's deity, Crom. Clom.
Hey Jay.
Yo.
I think I called in a few weeks ago. I just had a few more questions to ask. I got 3. If that's all right, if you got time for all of them.
I mean, as long as they're not super long, 20 minutes per question.
All right.
Type questions.
Okay, so the Orthodox position of the angel of the Lord being Jesus Christ in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you, in the Old Testament, when Christ appears, is his nature both divine and human, or is it somehow only divine at that point?
They're energetic manifestations. So there's an element of mystery there, because we see many places in the Old Testament, even where it's not even just apparently Christ himself, but theophanic manifestations like the cloud and the fire. Now, Christ is present in these. For example, if you look at Leviticus 9, we have the statement at the very end that the glory of the Lord appears to the entire congregation. And we're told a little bit earlier that Jesus, or the angel of the Lord, is there. He's present. We're told in other places, for example, he stood at the door of the tent, right? And then it says all of Israel saw the glory of the Lord. We think about it, Exodus, we see the glory cloud coming down into the temple. We see the pillar of fire, which is the fire of the Lord. So we think those are energetic manifestations of divine power, divine energy in time and space, because God's able to do that. How he does that, we don't know, but there's no sense, for example, in which God's glory could be called created. So I think we have to say in places like Leviticus 9:23 that these are, as the church fathers say, energetic manifestations. So they're not creatures, because you can't call creatures uncreated glory.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Another thing on the topic of geopolitics and the whole cultural discourse, I guess. So with neo-paganism, is that do you think that's a globalist or whatever push? Because it doesn't seem to be very effective. I mean, it could be, given that there's so much retardation going around it, like going on.
I mean, I don't think that. I mean, that's not a serious, huge movement at this point. I'm sure that there are fed people involved in those groups. I mean, but they also, I don't think they're really effective to actually create any kind of solidified, substantial threat. So I don't think they're super worried about it. But I think it's very possible that it could be used in that way, because it could easily turn to sort of earth worship, nature worship type stuff, which that's very amenable to, the United Nations green type of ideology. So I don't know that, from if Zbigniew Brzezinski were alive, if he were here, or David Rockefeller, I don't think he would be super concerned with neo-pagan movements, but I'm sure there are feds and provocateurs and all these types of movements.
Yeah, but so many of their arguments, like they're against, like them, their arguments against Christianity and their arguments for paganism are it's a completely false dichotomy, where they have a fictional, imagined version of Christianity where it's Jewish. Allegedly, they group all these different denominations together into one blob.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to Himmler. Himmler made these arguments.
Yeah, and then their whole like modernized, sanitized, romanticized, fictional version of paganism is also, if you read like all these different historical accounts, like Tacitus, I think Caesar and DeBello Gallico.
Yeah, Caesar himself did. Yeah, in his diaries. Yeah.
Yeah, you get kind of a taste of the savagery. I had another question.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever studied any sort of ancient languages, like related to like the biblical context?
No, I'm not very good at languages. I took 2 years of German. I mean, I got good grades in it, but I'm not particularly gifted in linguistics.
Because I know Orthodox are. I know I'm the smart. I'm Orthodox. I'm from Russia. I can speak Russian, and most Orthodox I see are pretty smart. So if there could be a concerted effort among the Orthodox to have a working knowledge of various languages in the biblical context, that could be an advantage over the evangelicals, where you have you can claim to read or at least understand the scriptures in historical.
Yeah, well, I noticed that a lot of Greek priests or priests that know and speak New Testament Koine Greek. They're actually pretty good at that, and they bring it up quite a bit. And we do have some people, Father Stephen DeYoung is capable in that regard. But yeah, I think that'll come in time. I mean, I think more and more people are going to convert. I don't think we're going to see a slowing down or a stopping of people converting to Orthodoxy. So I would expect that will also bring more and more people who have the gift of tongues, which is not gibberish; it's actually languages. So Hugo, what's up? Great questions. Hugo Boss, what's up, dog?
Hey, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
So I admire your knowledge on a lot of topics, and you attribute a lot of it to books. I watched your video on books, books you should read.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about how we should be reading books often. And sometimes in debates or, in your streams, you'll pull one and I'll see tabs or I'll see just some sort of a system down. And I was just wondering, do you recommend any systems to help with like retaining knowledge or referencing?
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot and appreciate the question. And actually, honestly, there's not one. Basically, all I do is buy sticky notes. And when I read a book, if there's something substantial on that page, I just restate and summarize in the sticky note what it is. I'm also very visual, so I tend to want to have a tactile interaction through underlining and writing notes. So, it kind of depends on the type of person that you are. Some people are more auditory. Maybe they don't, but I tend to remember pages very well. And, that's, I remember the way the page looked, in about the middle of that book. So I just simply summarize on the note, on the sticky note, what's relevant. There's no color system. There's no that's all there is to it. That's it. I think it's funny because a lot of people think, not saying you thought this, but I always think, oh, you must have some like really elaborate. No, there's not. There's no color codes. There's nothing. It's all just like.
It's geomancy.
It's all geomancy. It's augury. I use birds and I do divination through birds. Yeah. By the way, there's a bunch of mancies. If you don't know, there's like all of these different ones. They're really funny terms too. Like I like augury a lot, but there's geomancy and there's
Averymancy. That's the study of birds.
divination through birds.
Divination through birds, yeah.
Project. What's on your mind, man? By the way, guys, the topics are anything you guys want within reason. So it's pretty open forum. I thought maybe I would do a more serious lecture, but I think we're having a little more fun just having open and chat tonight. So I did just get back from pretty hectic several days of travel, so I am kind of tired. But Project, what's up?
What's going on, Jay? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. What's on your mind?
Hey, man. I've been God's been putting on my heart for a long time about heading into Orthodoxy. It actually started when I was at seminary. It kind of blew my mind. My missiology professor had us look at the two places on planet Earth where Christianity was growing the most. He told us that it was Pentecostalism in Africa. And the next one blew my mind. I had no idea, but it was Russia. And so I started kind of casually looking into it. This was years ago. And I'm looking at it from afar, watch your stuff. I guess the question is there is there a better place here in America, the Orthodox Church of America? Is there a better, there's Greek Orthodox, there's Russian Orthodox. Where would you recommend, in what direction I should go towards?
I wouldn't worry too much about the jurisdictions if you're coming into the church. If you're new to it, you're checking it out. What I would do is visit all the ones near you, and you will be able, I think, to sense like which place is the best for you. I mean, obviously, if you you get to some place that unfortunately has like a super liberal priest or something, I would avoid that. But most likely you'll find something that's workable. But it really depends on where you are. If you're in a huge place, if you're in New York and you've got 20 Orthodox churches, that's big difference from people that are in the middle of nowhere like me with only a couple options or no options. So I would try them all out and see which one was the best. Don't worry too much initially about the jurisdictions. It's like Father Deacon also says, like, everybody thinks like, oh, I'm Russian Orthodox. Like, we're not baptized into a jurisdiction. You're baptized into the Orthodox Catholic Church. So remember to think of it that way. It's a good piece of advice that FTA has. I assume you still agree with that, FTA. Are you there?
Yeah, but I published my recantations of.
Well, do you could you speak to that? Like, why do you see that as an issue? Because maybe a lot of people don't even realize that that might be a problem.
Sorry, just remind me again. Sorry.
Like when people say, as you said the other day, like, "Oh, I was baptized into ROCOR." Like, why is it you're not?
Jurisdictional drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So, you're not baptized into a jurisdiction. You're baptized in the Orthodox Church. Inevitably, the parish that you go to and are baptized in is under a jurisdiction. But jurisdiction is primarily for administrative and clerical. And so it drives me crazy when people are like, oh, I'm Antiochian. I go to Antioch. It's like, no, you're not. You're not wearing the cuffs. I wear cuffs. The priests wear cuffs. We're cuffed to the altar of a particular parish because we're part of that administration. So we need releases. We have to get permissions to serve in other dioceses and stuff, parishes and other dioceses. But clergy are free. And that's really a healthy mentality, too.
You mean laity or?
Sorry, excuse me. Laity are free. And that's a healthy mentality. Now, you have an individual parish, and that's your family, as long as you're living there and you're committed to that in terms of priority. So you're not going to another parish every weekend or something like that. But you're not wedded or cuffed to a jurisdiction. You're not baptized into a jurisdiction. And so it's just, I think it's kind of divisive. I think especially in the United States, I don't think it's healthy for people. Now, I think it's something kind of natural that people want to do that. Like, oh, I'm this. I want to categorize myself. It's like, you're not. You're Orthodox.
Yeah.
Just administratively and practically, you go to a parish that's administratively under a jurisdiction.
Great points. Into the furnace.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Hope you're doing good. I hope you get some good rest after the travel. Got a couple quick things. One, I actually have an interesting question I kind of been curious to pick your brain about. So with the geopolitical stuff and kind of the subversion with the Vatican and evangelicals, have you ever considered, maybe you are, but have you considered writing a book kind of in a similar fashion of maybe esoteric Hollywood that kind of goes through kind of all the different books that you've read on the subject, but in a maybe more entertaining way for people to kind of get the baseline idea of what it is. So instead of the academic realm of the issues with, you know, the CIA and the KGB and all this other stuff, have you thought about maybe writing something that kind of encapsulates it all together?
I have a lot, but the problem is that nobody will read that. So, you know, but it's unfortunate because I enjoy writing books. It's a very rewarding process to produce a book. And the problem is in part that books take a lot of time and energy and they don't make a lot of money. So if you know, unfortunately, I'm not independently wealthy. So I don't have the ability to just sort of, now if, you know, Bitcoin goes to the moon and, you know, we can quote retire in a few years, then I'll be free to do what I want. I won't be sort of having to, you know, do things that focus on making money. But I would love to, you know, we're just not in the era where you can like survive by writing books. You know what I mean? Like if you could do that in the 90s and you had an agent and all that, like you could maybe pull that off, but we're not in that world anymore. So, you know, unless you're Stephen King or whoever boomer, you know, romance person that has the books ghostwritten or whatever, like it's just really hard to do that if you do your own books. And I've done it both ways. I've done 3 published books, then I've done a couple self-published. And I mean, it can be a nice little side income, but they don't make money. So it's just, and if is a subject matter that's kind of niche like that, nobody will read that. So it would basically be a whole lot of work and little payoff.
Yeah, I just think like I think it could be in a matter of approach and the way it goes about it, because I think it's a subject that is intuitively and just instinctually interesting. I just think that a lot of the communication of it has been kind of like dry and academic and kind of meandering.
Well, yeah, but I don't even know. I understand. I don't know how you would write that subject matter that wasn't going to be kind of dry and historical and academic. I mean, it's by its nature, it's kind of like doing history. And I mean, history books are, I mean, unless your history book is in Barnes and Noble or something, like it's just, you're not going to make any money doing it. So.
Well, you could even do kind of in a quick shift. You could do like a pretty interesting documentary. I know people eat that stuff up all day long, especially if it's produced in a good way. Yeah, I was just curious, and let me ask you this: like, if you did write a book, like, what would be the approach? Like, what would be sort of your thesis, or what would be your?
All right, got it. Since I'm Jay's publisher and handler, people are so dumb that Jay actually has to do like color by number books now and like connect dots. And
I will write the whole book in crayon, so it'll have giant text, and it'll be like giant crayon text, so that people could follow it. And it's all pictures too. So
no, here's another one too: scratch and sniff tag books. Like you don't get it, just smell it.
Right. You're right though that maybe a well-produced sort of documentary thing could work. But the other thing is like, even for a documentary, okay, like so Tucker, and I just watched this the other day, all 5 episodes of his 9/11 files, which this was a really well done documentary on issues and questions about the Big 9 event. If you guys haven't seen it, I didn't really enjoy this. It's kind of like, it's not, I mean, it's a little bit like Loose Change or something like that, but it's a little more like, let's focus on the big questions. So whereas, Fabled Enemies by Burmis, or Loose Change by Burmis, or, Alex's Big 9 documentaries, like, they're not bad, but they'll kind of go into areas that are perhaps a little more speculative, which no, I have no problem with that. But I think what Tucker wanted to do was push the button on the biggest huge problem issues with the official Big 9 story. So for example, when he did that, the first one got 9 months ago almost 8 million views on YouTube, which that's huge. The subsequent ones didn't get that much. I mean, that's to be expected though, because most of the time with YouTube stuff, if you do these sort of episodic installments, that's usually what happens. Like, there's a massive drop off between the first one and the second, the third one. So, this one I think was a really good example of what you're talking about that could be done. I just still think, unfortunately, that the whole issue of understanding the potentiality of religion as soft power and that kind of stuff is still just super niche. Because, for example, as I was telling you guys the other night, I mean, I've almost got all the books on Vatican espionage that are available. Now, there could be some unknown text that, some, like this one, for example, this was a French guy's book that's translated. I've got another, espionage book that's a French guy's analysis recently translated. So there could be many more books. But when it comes to Vatican espionage English books, I think I have almost all of them. It's not that many. There's only about 10. Okay, so some of these subjects that you guys hear us talk about, they're still very niche subjects, and they're subjects that only have 10 English published books on. So I think it's possible to do a high produced documentary style thing. Something like the way the Tucker did the 9/11 questions is good, but I also don't have the time and the money and the means that Tucker has to do this kind of thing. And Tucker has a team. Tucker's got producers, multiple producers. This is me and Jamie, dude. So yeah, you guys want to okay, how about this? Send your Bitcoin right here. Here's the Bitcoin address, and feel free to fund the documentaries of the future. That'd be fun. People are saying, "Hey, Jay, you should start a." Prestia says, "Do a geopolitics GoFundMe project." Well, I appreciate the sentiment, but that's just not going to make that much money. I'm not trying to be rude, or I just don't think that. I mean, you're going to reach a lot more people through going on large podcasts and doing a 2-hour talk like that than you will trying to on your own put out. I mean, if I did a really high produced documentary and put it out, the best case scenario that I could get through all of my social media outlets is maybe 200,000 views, maybe 300 best case scenario. So that's not going to make any money. It's not going to do much. So, Tucker's got a huge platform. So if he does 9/11 question, he can get 8 million views just on YouTube. So if the channel grows, if we are more successful, in these regards, yeah, I'd love to do that kind of stuff. That would be great. But yeah, great ideas. Definitely things to keep in, on the back burner for sure. Tempe, what's up, man? I mean, just take, for example, the Kat Von D podcast. That got, so far that's had, between, I'd say, YouTube and X, maybe counting clips, maybe 150,000 views total. I put a lot of money into that. So I spent several $1,000s to make that podcast happen. And I think it's great. It turned out great. I didn't make money on it, but it's okay because it was something I really wanted to do. I wanted to put together a really quality interview. And so I'm willing to sometimes lose money on certain projects, even if it doesn't get as much traction or make as much. But that was more of an investment and something that I wanted to do. So, that if you have the means, you can do more of that kind of stuff. But if you're still sort of having to work, then, you're not as free to do a lot of the projects that you would prefer to do. But definitely great ideas for perhaps down the road in the future. Tempe, what's up, man? I'm you.
Hey, brother, how you doing, man?
Good.
I just want to just give you a big thanks, man. Like, I'm a normie, bro. I started writing a book, based on Kurt Metzger's recommendations, and because of him, it led me to you, and because of that, it led me to Matt Errett, and because of that, it led me to Courtney Turner, and it's just painting like a picture that's extremely clear and easy to see, and I think your breakdown on the Fabian Society and the Milner conspiracy was like connected every single fucking dot there is to connect on the planet, so I just want to say a big thank you, man, like from all the normies out there. Like, you are doing the Lord's work. You're opening the eyes of people who think politics is still real and all that fucking bullshit. So I just, from the bottom of my heart, man, I just want to say thank you so much for pointing me in the right direction and helping me put all this together, man. I just want to say
Well, hey, appreciate that, Tempe. It's nice to hear the positive side of it because obviously you do this kind of stuff. You do get not a lot of negative feedback, but it's nice to hear the positive ones. And I think you guys are going to be really fascinated too when we get into this Rothschilds biography because it's so telling. It's so, I mean, it just reads like Game of Thrones or something, right? It's like a next level sort of thriller, but it's an actual. I thought the book was going to be boring, but it was actually really exciting. Kelly, what's up? So we got some bangers coming up. We got Vatican Spies. We got the Rothschilds. Both of them. I've almost read most of both of them, so they're both going to be fun. Kelly, what's up? You want to mute?
Yo, what's up, Jay?
Hey.
Just had a quick question, man. So I was watching the Piers Morgan, that episode that you had with Andrew, and one thing that caught my attention was...
You talking about the atheist, the gaytheist?
Yeah. One thing that caught my attention was when it was the back and forth with, I believe one of them said that if God is making like the morality, that it's no different than if, I forgot the guy's name, but if he was making it, like the objective versus...
Yeah, he was saying that if God is a subject, then ethics are subjective, which is just a...
I feel like that was a good point because I'm still learning. I'm still trying to understand all of that. So and you never got the really rebuttal
Yeah, well, the difference is that God is a divine subject, so he's an absolute subject, and we are human created finite subjects. So it's a category error in philosophy to think that because the same word is used, that the same sense of the human domain of subjectivism would therefore make the divine basis for morality, quote, subjective. So yeah, from God's vantage point, it's subjective, but he's the absolute subject. He's a divine person. Thus, it's not the same thing as relativism, because when we say that human ethics are subjective or relative, that means they're on a whim, they're arbitrary, they're subject to change. But if God is unchanging, then to say that he's the basis for ethics as an absolute would therefore mean that ethics are not subjective in the sense of human change and flux. So it's equivocating on the word subjective or subject.
Okay. So is what makes morality objective is that it's grounded in a never-changing being? Is that
Yes.
the category error that they were making?
Yes, they were saying that because God's a subject, that makes the ethics subjective and thus flippant and changeable, like it would be if it was a human subject.
I see. But it is
part of the problem. By the way, as Jay pointed out, it's just equivocating on words. It doesn't make it subjective because it's the word subject,
Right, right.
But because human subjects in the position that they're in, right, being finite, not having created the world and stuff like that, couldn't be. I mean, here's where normativity comes in. Couldn't epistemically bind other people. Why? Because they're right there. They're not above and beyond the world which they created. So there's a reason why we talk about, well, it's subjective that the individual is the standard for truth, and there's nothing that's binding upon other individuals. Why? Because they're a subject? No, because the type of subject that they are in the world. So because God is a subject, but he's not the type of subject that we are in the world, would be normatively binding in terms of epistemics. So they're first of all, they're retarded. They don't know what they're talking about, but they're equivocating on words.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Even in the human domain, just because it's a human subject that is saying something or experiencing something or doing something, it doesn't follow from that therefore it is subjective in an absolute sense, like it's all relative. I mean, you could say, for example, that I subjectively learned that 2 + 2 is 4. I believe that as a human subject, but it doesn't make the truth of 2 + 2 = 4 a purely subjective or relative proposition.
Okay, but it is correct to say that God is, like, I can say that God is a subject, because that's where I was kind of like...
Sure, yeah, God is a divine subject, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, put it this way. He's a subject that objectively stands above the world and binds.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
That's one way to solve it.
Okay, so that's the category they're making. Okay.
Yeah, so I was saying he's an absolute subject, right? In the sense of like the terminology of philosophy, absolute versus, non.
That's a great way to put it. An absolute subject versus relative.
I want to say that I think Stan Eloy even uses that ideology when he's arguing this. He argues this kind of a point,
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, because that's something I was lately like trying.
No, that's a great question, and I remember now that you said that. I didn't get to actually explain that because that show is like geared towards like 2 minutes of fast back and forth, and then it's a new topic. So we didn't really get to go into that, but great question. Kevin, what's up, man? Kevin, you there? You want to unmute? Kevin.
What up?
Hey. Can barely hear you. What's up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
The real documentary we want, Jay, is how to become the real Wigga BIPOC diva at the same time.
That's a skill set that's innate to me biologically. It's not something that I could ever even teach you. Unless you send me 1 Bitcoin, then I'll definitely teach it to you. So the Ruslan, you can clip that. You can expose me. Keenan, what's up? Keenan and Kel, what's up? Good Burger, what's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, man. Thanks for taking the call. Is Reformed theology okay tonight?
Sure.
Yeah, I've been Orthodox for a couple years now, largely thanks to a lot of your work, so I appreciate that, man. I have an older brother who's been firmly OPC, Orthodox Presbyterian, for probably 15 years now. We grew up evangelical, but he's been OPC, but he's been having more and more like issues with kind of the on-the-ground OPC, not necessarily their dogmatics, but just kind of how things are functioning in their churches. They're kind of slowly moving towards liberalism a little bit. I never was Reformed. I kind of was evangelical until I was Orthodox. So I've been kind of, like reading through the OPC's, statements of faith and their thing. Something that I saw that I was just surprised by is they say that faith alone has always been the vehicle of salvation, both in the Old and New Covenant. I've never heard that claim. Was that the stance of the Reformers, and like how do they kind of justify?
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely, that's 100% a Calvinist theological teaching, and usually they would argue this from Galatians that Paul says the gospel is preached in the Old Testament. I mean, it's still true. We would, as Orthodox, say the gospel was preached in the Old Testament. We just don't think that it was the sola fide gospel that was preached in the Old Testament, but that's where they would get that.
How do they, I guess, rationalize that with like, what is the entire purpose of the law? Is it like literally just to point out sin? Like that's the only purpose of all of?
No, I mean, I think in the Reformation confessions, I'm going from memory of Westminster Confession, and then Bahnsen and people like that were OPC that would explain it. They would say stuff like, from Paul's epistles, we can find like the law has three purposes. I'm just going from memory, like, because I know in some places Paul will say, like in Romans and to Timothy, he'll say stuff like the law was there to, increase transgression so that grace might come. It points out transgression. What's the phrase in Timothy? The law exists not for the righteous man, but for the wicked, for the state even. So some Calvinists might even say that the law exists for the state to punish the evildoers. So I'm just going, it's been a long time since I thought about it, but there's some like 3-tier classification that I want to say that they'll say that the law has these 3 purposes in Paul, but ultimately, whether it's the ceremonial law or whether it's the moral law, all of those things really just convict us of sin so that we turn to grace as the thing that saves us.
Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that. One more question, if you don't mind. There's been, like I said, because nothing's binding, I find that Protestants will tend to kind of waffle back and forth on this. One has been, even like Redeemed Zoomer has kind of gone back like, Calvinists, Reformed believe in free will. Now, it's obviously not, when they say that, they mean something different than evangelicals.
Yeah, I mean, I typically basically, they just are kind of giving lip service to the fact that we make decisions and we do make choices. But they also will say, but your choices are also under the divine decree. So you're making a choice, but God's also directly determined your choice.
Okay, so there's not really any way they try to justify that. It's more of just lip service to like a rhetorical.
By the way, hold your thought here because I was right. I did remember correctly. And this is just pulling from like R.C. Sproul's website. According to Reformed theology, there's 3 uses of the law. There's a pedagogical use because Paul says the law was our tutor to lead us to Christ. So the Old Testament law, the moral law, ceremonial law, they are a teaching guide to point us to something beyond law. There's the civil political use, that it's a restraint against evil. So law exists, biblical law, moral law. Civil law exists to restrain evil. And then there's the normative use of the law as like moral theological, a guide to morals and binding your conscience. So those are the 3 uses of the law in classic Reformed theology. Anyway, I was correct. So go back to what was your last question there about? I forgot what it was.
Yeah, no, I would just, I've never, it's always seemed like the homage they give to free will is mostly rhetorical and not actually something that like,
I think
they actually stand upon. It's just, it sounds.
I mean, they'll tell you all day long, right? They'll tell you all day long. No, we admit there is free will, but then ultimately it's just lip service.
Okay. All right. that helps. Appreciate it.
And the way to show that it's lip service is to say, okay, but do you believe that God is the direct cause of every event in the divine decree? And they'll be like, yeah. Okay, well then you're just giving it lip service. So that's why it's important to talk about secondary causes, because if we say with St. John Damascus that God is the direct cause of the world, but he also created a world where there's real secondary causes, which he providentially knows all of the secondary cause, by his foreknowledge, he knows all secondary causes, but it doesn't follow that he's the direct cause of also the secondary causes, because that would remove their actual causative power and thus free will.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I was talking about this with someone the other day, but like I feel like a lot of these Protestant like the terminologies that they use kind of break down because they're like half and half using Greek philosophical terms, but then kind of redefine them for their own
Absolutely
anti-Catholic theological points.
Yeah, well, they did the same thing with the biblical terms in the New Testament, where they read into it all the Reformation theology. Well, Paul clearly meant, post-Enlightenment Reformation theology. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Is there any like good sources that, I don't know, just at least specifically, I mean, I've watched a few of your videos and stuff on specifically, but just any articles or anything that like specifically anti-reformed doctrines that you would point me to from an Orthodox perspective?
I did several long podcasts on Tulip and Calvinist theology. I did one long podcast with Dr. David Patrick Harry, critiquing Reformed theology. I did 2 podcasts with Sam Shamoon that are good, that are on my Clips channel, called J. Dyer Live Streams and Absurdities is the channel. There's 2 2-hour talks on there that are good. I did a talk with the Orthodox channel Transfigured Life, where we compacted all of that into 1 hour critiquing Calvinism. So there's quite a few in the archives. But yeah, there's a lot of articles that I wrote over the years too, kind of critiquing Christology from the Calvinist perspective. And
yeah, I remember you had a 2 or 3 hour video on their Christology issues, which I thought was really good, and then realized that almost no one in my life even goes that deep into Christology, and it's like, man, I wish I could figure out a way to actually get people to.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, I know, it's a challenge. I mean, I think if you want books wise, some of the key books that really helped me out was St. Cyril of Alexandria, the Christological Controversy. That helped cure a lot of my Latin assumptions. Even when I was Roman Catholic, I still had some of these sort of Nestorian holdovers that I didn't even realize. So the McGuckin book on St. Cyril of Alexandria, the Christological Controversy, is really good. St. Maximus's little book called Disputations with Pyrrhus, that's really, really good for refuting Calvinism as well. Because the monothelites that he's debating, they end up being monoenergists, and Calvinists are monoenergists. So
okay, so monoenergism, I can't say that word, monoenergism does show up prior to the Reformation.
Absolutely, it's the entire debate of the Sixth Council.
Okay. All right.
Now,
cool.
That's monoenergism in Christology, but that same principle of monoenergism in Christology also is applicable to our soteriology and to the soteriology that he's debating with the monothelites and the monoenergists. Gary, what's up? Great questions, by the way. Gary? Gary, you want to unmute? Gary, last chance. All right. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy. You want to unmute?
Yes. Hey, how are you doing this afternoon?
Good. What's on your mind?
I don't know what time it is for you.
It's night here.
So I've actually talked to you a few different times. You may or may not remember me, but I just wanted to ask you a few questions. If you have just a quick second, it might be a little long, drawn out. If that's cool with you.
Okay.
Cool. So I've been trying to. I've been going through different spaces and trying to explore a few different ideas. And I just want to come out and say that I definitely do not agree with the ones I'm going to bring up to you. But I want to understand your philosophy and how you do things, because I feel like you're on the same page, the right page anyway. So I just want to run it by you, like kind of like a steel man type thing.
Okay.
My biggest worry for me, I'm in California, so I'm in Los Angeles anyway, is kind of the anti-white stuff that's going on, and I just want to understand like how I think about it versus how the church may see it, or how you may see it, I guess. It feels like I'm supposed to not care, and I just want to understand why it is that is maybe the church's philosophy.
Well, I
as
don't
far
know
as
what.
Orthodox
I
or
mean,
Catholics
that's probably gonna depend on which person that you're talking to within the church, because there have been many periods in the church when people were kind of forced into not talking about certain things, or, for example, like we were talking about earlier with the Ottomans. The Ottomans forced people under their subjection in the Orthodox countries into ethnarchies, which were also, in a way, ethnically based. So that's kind of dependent upon the people and the time and who you're talking to. But I am on YouTube as well, so this is a topic that you kind of can't really do on YouTube. So is there a way that we could talk? Is there a topic that you like to talk about that's not going to be flagged on YouTube?
I didn't. Thank you for telling me that. I didn't realize that. When I'm to make it a little more PG friendly, I understand that race is more of a, we don't want to create idolatry right towards race.
Well, I would say rather than race, which I'm not saying there's no such thing as that classification. I think ethnicity is a better way to understand it, because everybody immediately understands their ethnos, and then race is a little more broad or generic, and more of a broader classification of some of those ethnicities. But go ahead.
Yeah, so like the trouble I'm having is balancing the Christian worldview of ethnicity, where to put it in, I guess, terms that are PG, like the browning of everybody, right? Where it's fine that everybody just mixes, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. It's just, and I think you agree with this, that like using groups of people as like weapons against other groups of people, like just flooding the nation with whoever. I'm sure you don't agree with that necessarily.
It's a form of demographic warfare.
Right. So yeah, I believe you've talked about that before. So I'm glad we agree on that. What I'm trying to balance right now is like, so I've gone to spaces and I've talked to people that are absolutely insane. They're like the 1488 guys are like, oh, Christ was a Jew.
Yeah. Well, again, like we'll have to have a conversation like this when we're not on YouTube, when we're maybe on X, because I do have spaces that are not on YouTube, but you can't talk about that on YouTube. So call in next time. Robert, what's up? That's like one of the few things that still part of the terms of service. Like you can't talk about that. I mean, as far as I'm aware. Robert, what's up? Robert, you want to unmute?
Morning, Jay. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
Yeah, just kidding. It's the crack of dawn here in the UK. My question to you, I've been following you for a couple of years, and you have a good knowledge of the religion in that sense and the various forms. How can I put it? You seem to have an opinion of mine. Would you say that the likes of the Crown and the Rothschilds have used religion to manipulate America and Americans?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any question about it.
Through the Methodists, the evangelicals.
Yeah, I think from the vantage point of the state, whether it's the American government or whether it's the UK, the British Crown, I think they would like to use any and all outlets, including religion. Absolutely.
My sort of personal opinion is that they know they can't control every aspect, so they have tentacles in all.
Sure.
To manipulate.
I do believe that. Yeah.
I found I was looking at something a while back to do with the word homogenesis and the transhumanism movement, and I came across an old, how can you say it, book from the history of the English state. How every state likes to keep records from the Romans and the Greeks and such. And in the book, it gave a listing of every, in one particular year, it gave a listing of every person who was under the crown, whether they were working in a shipyard or whether they were working in the British Army, listing officers and such.
Right.
but it also gave reference to the religious side of things, and I then followed a link to another book, or a name of another book, which I looked up, and it was showing how the British Church used to manipulate the slaves in the West Indies and in the Carolinas and the southern part of America. Interesting in that aspect, how they used, the priest class were used to manipulate people.
Yes, in fact, I think that is true. We should be honest about that, that missionaries have been used as spies forever. I have some books on, not just like books critiquing the opium trade and all that, but even back in the 1800s, late 1800s, I have like old parliament sessions and whatnot where Chinese were complaining that they believed that the British were sending missionaries not just to bring Christianity, but also to to push opium, and as well as spying. So could be exaggerated, but also could definitely have happened because I'm not pro China or pro atheist China, but again, one of the reasons that they don't like allowing Western religions in is not just because of the atheist governments. Also, they have the stance, which is true, that those are used for espionage and for soft power. So it's a very complex situation, and history is complex. It doesn't mean everybody who's a missionary is bad or a spy. It just means that that's a reality that's part of it. Um, so yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with that's how the power structure, that's how they see it. Many of them in the power structure, they're cynical. They don't believe in religion. For them, it's a power game. So the religions are like tools, chess pieces on the chessboard, right? What is Brzezinski's book, Grand Chessboard? So I think you're spot on with that. And that when we understand that, we can begin to understand why, oh, okay, well, that's why Russia bans the Jehovah's Witnesses and bans these other groups, Scientology. It's because they're aware that Western intelligence can use those for many different things. Same reason why, America would at various times ban other groups from coming in and doing certain activities. And the reality is that this is just statecraft and this is history. This is, if you go study history and get a history degree, you're going to read about warfare and spies, and that's just how the world works. But yeah, exactly. That dude sounded like Arthur. Arthur Shelby. Arthur Shelby and the Peaky Blinders. That guy had a cool voice. I like that. Joyal Victor. Joyal Victor. What's up, dude? All right, he's having a hard time connecting. Nathan, what's up, man? Yeah, by the way, a great point about Mike Benz. Yeah, Mike Benz's whole stop. He spent a lot of time talking about USAID the last couple of years, or ever since the whole, Doge shut down USAID funding. And lo and behold, it turns out like just massive funding of all kinds of crazy shit, including religious soft power type stuff. All right, Nathan, last chance. Nathan, all right. Mr. Donald. Hello? Donald?
Probably Donald Trump. Probably the best scholar we've ever had. Probably not.
Xavier Lasagna, what's up, dude?
Hello.
Hey.
Okay, I have a few questions I want to ask you. You hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, can I ask you a Skittles question?
Am I gay? Is that what you're asking?
No. I just want to know if
I just asked the question, dude. What's up?
Okay. Do you think Skittles' attraction is merely caused by nurture and not nature? Is there potentially a link there to the fall, and could biology be tied to it at all?
I don't know, but I guess it's possible that there could be genetic based proclivities, but I don't want to say that any sins are necessarily identical to biology or genetics. But there might be, through past generations or something like a proclivity within your genealogy or something like that. Seems possible to me, but I don't actually know.
Okay, why do you think God would allow that if homosexuality is prohibited?
Because of this, in the same way that like if a mom has a baby and she drinks, right, she can cause fetal alcohol syndrome, or if she's a fentanyl addict or whatever, like a baby can be born as an addict as well. It's because the world is structured such that our actions don't just affect us, they can actually affect other people. So it has to do with the way the world is structured as a fallen world, and why God allowed it to be structured that way after the fall. Nobody knows.
Okay, so it's a side effect of sin, basically.
Yeah. Although I would think that even if had there not been sin, the world would still have reciprocal action reaction to where your actions would still affect people. So I don't want to say that your actions affecting other people is only a result of the fall, but yeah.
Okay, thanks. I heard your podcast with Pajot. I wanted to know, why did you tell Pajot that it's better not to go to a Catholic church even if someone doesn't have any Orthodox churches in their reach?
Because that's the Orthodox teaching.
Okay, well, if the person really doesn't have anything near, it's better for them to just stay home and pray instead of going to a
Yes.
Catholic church.
Yeah, because of the severity of not communing with heretics and schismatics. So canon law doesn't allow for you to join in communion with heretics and schismatics just because you live where there's not a church.
Okay, fair enough. Another question, with the experience you have today, would there be something you would do differently from the get-go in relation to independent infotainment creation for someone that wants to go that route, whether promotion, communication, outsourcing, or just the creation side?
Do you mean because I'm Orthodox? Like, does it cause problems, or you saying just from a vantage point of like success and what worked and didn't work?
Just the success. I want to start a YouTube channel. I just need some, just advice, something you wish you knew.
I mean, there's a lot, things that, yeah, I mean, I'll say a few things. When I started doing this, I mean, some of my advice might not be even relevant to today because, I started doing YouTube stuff around 2011 and I didn't do it right. So I was uploading audios. I was just treating it like a podcast storage unit. So that's not how YouTube works. So I would have not done that back then. I would have done more 10, 20-minute videos that were decently produced, kind of laying out positions, because I didn't know really how the algorithm worked. I would have done better with thumbnails and titles, because that's absolutely necessary information for doing YouTube successfully. The live streams didn't exist at that time, so that didn't really even come into play. But live streams are very effective for if you can build an audience and be entertaining and keep them engaged. And they do decent in terms of like revenue, but they don't do well long term in the algorithm. So basically, a live stream's dead after a week. So if you do want to grow a channel, you have to kind of also be doing videos that attract a following. And that's not typically what live streams do. So you need to have 10, 20, 30, 40-minute videos that keep people engaged, because that will not just live in the algorithm, but it will also bring subscribers. So, I mean, those are some of the basics of YouTube that you could probably derive a lot of that from just, how to do YouTube type tutorials. There's a million videos like that. But I would also say too that, I mean, a lot of people think they're going to just do this stuff, which I'm not saying you can't, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. You have to do it all the time. And it's not for everybody. I mean, it is possible to pop off early and get really successful with, a few videos but it's like the lottery. That's not most people. So it's going to take you a lot of time. It's a lot of work. I'm not saying you think this, but a lot of people say, oh, you just sit down and talk into a camera and then that's all, it's a lazy ass job. Get a real job. Dude, we work from the time that I wake up until about 1 a.m. Even on the days that I'm not live streaming, I am nonstop working from the time that I wake up until going to bed. So there's basically, in what I do, the way we do it, there is no downtime. We have to kind of make ourselves take, certain days off to not get burnt out because we do it all the time nonstop. So, but I'm just kind of a driven person like that. So, that's going to depend upon your sort of output as well. But, I don't mean this to shut you down, but you kind of got to know ahead of time if you want to do infotainment, if you're an entertaining person. If you're not an entertaining type of person, you're probably not going to enjoy trying to do live streams and infotainment. But that doesn't mean you can't do YouTube and all this kind of stuff, because there's a lot of different ways to do YouTube. People have successful channels that are no face channels, right? There's people that do successful just auditory, talking over imagery channels. So there's a lot of different ways that you can approach it. One of the things that I didn't do right, which I don't know how really to ever grapple with this, is like, and I don't even know if the algorithm still works this way, but for a long time they were saying like you need to be kind of focused in one niche. I'm not going to do a channel where I just talk about one niche, because I'm not a person that only cares about one topic. That might be a way to grow faster. If you only talked about a channel devoted to fishing, a channel devoted to drama on YouTube, right? Like one central topic that's focused can have a lot of advantages for growing in the algorithm. So if you're an Orthodox channel that only talks about Orthodox theology, you're going to probably grow faster than a person that does what I do, where we talk about all kinds of crazy stuff, and the algorithm never really knows exactly the niche to put me in. So that probably hurt us for short-term gains, but I'm not ultimately worried about that, because I'm going to be me. I'm not a one-trick pony. I don't have one interest. I don't want to just talk about Orthodox theology all day long. I don't want to just talk about movies. I don't want to just talk about geopolitics. I don't want to just act like a retard. I want to do all those things together. So it really depends on who you are and what type of stuff you think you want to do and what niche you want to kind of be into. So great questions though. Jacoby, what's up? I mean, YouTube has also been great. I love YouTube. It's been great for me. We've weathered storms. We've had, some challenges, but I wouldn't change it for anything. I love doing what I do. What's up, man?
Hey, hello. Is my mic bad or good?
I can hear you.
Okay. Just two things. There's kind of bad weather where I'm at, so if I crash or whatever, that's what happened. And then I listen to Andrew Wilson a lot. That's how I got kind of more into your stuff. I've been one of your Chad Nerds members for like 6 months, so I've been watching your stuff a bunch.
Cool.
Something though was I've started looking at Origin, and it was actually a comment from Andrew Wilson on one of his debates where they asked about some stuff in the Old Testament, and he said it was allegorical. And I obviously first thought of Origin. And I don't know if he's made statements. Like I said, I haven't
I don't keep in touch with that, but I don't know if you saw that clip or made something about it. And I was starting to read on First Principles from him. I haven't like finished even the first volume or something, but I'm just wondering exactly. I know some of the other fathers say that there's like many different, I guess, things that you can get from the text. Like you can take many lessons, but go ahead if you had something on that.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple different topics here. There's the question number one of Origen himself, which as Orthodox, we do not think that he's a saint. He did unfortunately die outside of the church, and then later councils did not accept the system of Origen, but he is very valuable as an early church writer from the 2nd century, and of course biblical studies with the Hexapla and all these different things that he put together. He's very, very relevant, very important for understanding the thought process in the 2nd century of church fathers and the debates that were going on. But unfortunately, he did have a very Neoplatonic system that by the 6th Ecumenical Council ends up being rejected because it kind of ends up denying the doctrine of creation, the idea of eternal worlds and eternal falls, that Christ could have to come back and do eternal incarnations. He had a very low view of the body. He thought that the resurrected body was a sphere. I mean, he's got a lot of weird, bizarre Neoplatonic presuppositions. And he did tend to favor allegorical exegesis a little too much, but it's also correct that the Orthodox perspective doesn't think everything is literal. So there's a separate issue which is called hermeneutics, which is the science or the study of how to interpret texts. And so we do a certain type of hermeneutics in the Orthodox Church that's layered. It's called the quadriga. And by the 6th, 7th, and 8th century, both East and West kind of had a pretty normative structure about how to do the quadriga. And so basically you have the literal text, the literal meaning of the text, the historical meaning of the text, and then you have the anagogical, the allegorical, the metaphorical, etc. These layers that are sort of strata on top of that. And it doesn't mean that every single text has those 4 layers, but there are layers to the text depending upon the nature of the text. So, for example, sometimes in a genealogy is just a genealogy. There's not like an allegorical meaning of the dude that was the 5th descendant of Abraham. I'm just saying in general, that's not the case, right? So, but other times, if you're reading the Song of Solomon, okay, you have a, erotic love story between Solomon and one of his wives, and the church has typically interpreted that as a mystical allegory of the relationship between Christ and the church. So yes, there's all of those things are going on. But for example, you might have the Psalms, and the Psalms are David describing his own experiences when he's being persecuted by Saul or whatever. But in the church's interpretation, we would see those as sort of mystical expressions of the prophecies of Christ. So Christ is ultimately the son of David that's undergoing the persecutions that David's sufferings were a type of. So you've got messianic prophecies, you've got sort of spiritual typological references throughout a lot of these Old Testament texts. And that's the sense in which it is correct to say that a lot of the Old Testament is allegorical or typological or spiritual. So those are the sort of different things going on, but really great question. We haven't had a hermeneutics question in a long time. JG, what's up? Arakota says, did you go on the Bad Friends podcast? I've heard of that, but no, I've not ever been on that. Ryan Stefan says for $5, I started watching you also because of Andrew. Yeah, appreciate it. Andrew sends a lot of people. Andrew's been a great support and help and always been a positive source of, supporting what we do. And appreciate that very much. JG, what's up? You want to unmute?
Yo, what's up, Jay?
What's on your mind?
Yo, I just wanted to say, appreciate you for your content. You really changed my mind on Orthodoxy. I've been, like, checking it out.
Thank you.
And it feels like kind of a mission. I live in Brazil. Like, here is filled with Catholics and Protestants, so kind of feel like I'm in on a mission, but...
Oh, you're in Brazil. You said Brazil. Did you say Brazil?
What?
You said Brazil?
Yeah, Rio.
Okay, gotcha.
Brazil,
Okay.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was checking out, like,
your research on like the mega church and like Peter Drucker, like the business model.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw this video, and there's this pastor that like had some connections with him. Like he hanged around with the Leadership Network, which was like what he like founded, right? Like his company.
Okay.
And he wrote a book called New Evangelicalism. Like, he's a Protestant, so he's going to talk a lot about sola scriptura and like, Ecumenism. We know about that, but since he has certain connections with Peter Drucker, he might have some insight we don't know about.
Okay. So I'm looking it up. New Evangelicalism, and that's a book by who?
By this pastor dude, Paul Smith. I think that's his name. Yeah.
And is he critiquing that stuff?
Well, yeah, critiquing like the mega church model and
okay.
The initiatives of being a ecumenist, all that. But since he said that he's been around Peter Drucker and these guys, he might have some insight.
I got you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I've not heard of this book, but yeah. Like, I mean, you can definitely get insights from Protestant people on these types of things, especially they were in these people's circles. So appreciate that. I'll get that. Michael Jarone, $5. What's up, man? Thank you. SLID, $10. Thanks so much, man. CHETN, $10. Total victory. Yeah, dude. You guys are going to enjoy the big podcast when it drops. I'm pretty sure they said Monday, so be looking for that. And of course, obviously, if you're following me on the socials, it will be plastered everywhere. Don't worry. You won't miss it if you follow my stuff. If you don't follow my stuff, be sure and hop on over here on X and follow me there. You can follow me on all the outlets, Instagram, all the same stuff under my name. So there's that. And then there's that. What do you mean, what happened? Also, remember, we have a show sponsor, which is chalk.com, CHOQ.com, the best in supplementation on the internet. Remember to head on over to chalk.com and use promo code J60Life, that's JAY60LIFE, to get 60% off all those great products, including the Male Vitality Stack. Up your toxic masculinity with chalk.com, the best in the game. Pure adaptogens, pure ingredients, especially the Tonkat Elite happens to be my personal favorite. Kay, what's up? Kay, you want to unmute? Special K, what's up, dude?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I have a question on transcendental meditation, if you don't mind.
Okay, why are you laughing? Are you transcendently meditating right now and it's making you giggle?
No, it's so awful. I'm a really big David Lynch fan, and obviously I've seen all your videos on him.
I'm a big David Lynch fan
great.
too. I'm a big David Lynch fan too.
No, all your videos are so great, and I'm sorry if you've like touched on this before, but
it's okay.
How do you like reconcile watching him? I know like transcendental meditation, I mean, I don't know if it's a grift or if it's just Hinduism, I guess, is kind of a grift in itself, but it's an even worse off branch of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that he was into some of these things, but I mean, I just take it for what it is. Like he wasn't a Christian, but he had these, eccentric philosophical and esoteric interests. So I take it for what it is. When I watch Twin Peaks, I know I'm watching a guy influenced by Tibetan Buddhism and Zen Buddhism and whatever else, and I analyze it as such, much as if I was reading, I don't know, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or if I was reading the Egyptian Book of the Dead, right? I mean, I would treat it like any, or if I'm reading, literature from, I don't know. I mean, I remember reading, who's that guy? Umberto Eco. Read a bunch of his books when I was in college. I mean, he's a, leftist, atheist, Satanist, whatever he is. So, I mean, I treat it like I'm reading any other comparative religion or fiction text.
Okay.
But I mean, I've never been interested in transcendental meditation or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. One of my coworkers invited me to like a seminar around here, and I would just like went down a rabbit hole. But
yeah, I wouldn't go or participate in that kind of stuff.
I'm only an inquirer, so
okay.
I don't even want to like go down that whole rabbit hole. So, but also, so do you think like the, not to be like trite, but like the genius of David Lynch is like in spite of the I don't know, malfeasance of TM and Hinduism, or like not because of it. I mean, it's demonic, right? Like emptying your mind. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm not going to promote, the religious ideology, but it'd be like, I mean, if you read Shakespeare, Shakespeare has like alchemical, esoteric influences. I can appreciate what's in, the Shakespearean discourse and the symbolism and the typology there without adopting his interest in alchemy or whatever. Same thing with Edmund Spenser's Fairy Queen. I mean, you treat it like literature or like the arts because, David Lynch is making movies and plays. Movies are basically just plays. I mean, it's not really any different. If you're studying Antigone or, Sophocles, it's really no different than reading ancient Greek texts or plays.
Okay. Thank you so much. And thank you to Jamie. You guys are the best.
Thank you, Kay. Appreciate that. Glad to hear that you're inquiring, and I hope you find a good church. Donald, what's up, man? I don't think Shakespeare is an idiot. I don't know where you guys are getting that. What's up, man? Donald, last chance.
All right.
Hey.
I wanted to ask you, is my mic good?
Yeah.
All right. So I want to ask you if, about Eastern Orthodoxy, and like, if there is a universal arbiter, and like, how would that handle the Russian Orthodox breaking communion with the Church of Constantinople?
I mean, there have been many schisms in the history of the church, and the papacy didn't solve all the schisms. So, I mean, the schism is unfortunate, but your answer seems to be suggesting that if we had the papacy, it would be the arbiter.
No. I'm saying if there was an arbiter of, like, if there was an infallible or universal arbiter that the church could go to, then they would be like, they would basically be unified by that force.
Literally what I just said. So you're suggesting that the papacy would do that. Well, there have been many instances in the history of the church where there were schisms and the papacy didn't do that, and the papacy furthered that. So the solution is not the papacy. So it begs the question, because the question assumes that the papacy is the solution, but how do we know the papacy is a solution when the papacy itself has fostered and caused schisms?
Yeah, I'm not talking about the papacy. I'm saying there could be an alternative, and like, what does Eastern Orthodoxy have? Is it like a subjective or an objective source of knowledge?
Well, what would the alternative be for schisms in the church to be solved?
I don't know. Maybe a unified confession of faith or something that they could all hold to.
Well, I mean, there already exist those things, but I think the problem is that reality and history are more sophisticated, and they're more nuanced and difficult than the idea that just having a meeting or just having a confession would itself solve schisms. Because as we've been pointing out tonight, like, whether it's schisms in the history of the church or whether it's ecumenism in the 20th century, like, a lot of this has to do with geopolitics and espionage. And it's, I think, underestimating or overestimating human nature to think that you can just have these sort of silver bullet solutions to classical historical problems. So you're not going to solve infiltration and subversion of churches with, like, well, let's just have a confession that we all agree to. I'm not faulting you or being rude to you. I'm just saying that's a naive way to think about history and how, governments and nation states actually work. So it would be nice if you could have that kind of a thing, but, I mean, you have that kind of a thing in the papacy, and does the papacy actually work to do that? I would argue no. So we have a lot of examples of history showing that that doesn't actually work. But we also have examples of schisms, and there was the recent one, what was it, Bulgaria or Macedonia? One of the schisms that was like 50, several decades, just got healed without the papacy. So, Devin, what's up? Devin, you want to unmute?
How you doing, sir?
Hey.
Hey, so
I have a question. So I was watching your stream the other day with that one asshole that was like kind of attacking you about being, crude. He was like, you said he's like pious, right? So I come from the evangelical world, and that's something I still struggle with internally, with like trying to figure out like if does that make sense? Kind of.
What are you struggling with?
So like I really like your content, right? And I think you're really funny. But like something about like when I watch other Orthodox priests.
Yeah, I'm not a priest, so why are you expecting me to act like, as a person that writes for Sam Hyde? Why are you expecting me to act like a priest?
I don't know. That's why I'm actually asking you. I don't know. I like your stuff.
I mean, maybe you have silly expectations about what people are supposed to be and supposed to do, like as if everyone's supposed to be like one type of person or one type of role.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, it's just a personal struggle I still deal with. That I'm like trying to figure out with myself in terms of like, because I tried, because I used to cuss a lot and I tried to stop cussing. But recently watching you, I've kind of like tried to be like more relaxed with it and less like piety about it,
Yeah, I just think I'm not faulting you, but I remember what it's like being evangelical, and I think a lot of that stuff is it's really off-putting to people, because it seems, if you're humble and you're contrite and you're pious, then that's going to be something that you do, and it's going to be interior to you. I'm not saying you split your devotional life from your public life. I'm saying that the theology and all of that, it's for you, especially if you're a young dude, you're in your 20s. Like, for a lot of people think that you have to be performative, and it's all this external display. And just think about the way the evangelicals, it's all so showy, and it's all me, and oh, look at me praising the Lord, and it's all performative. And when you read the Beatitudes, all of that is not performative. He says all the stuff you're doing in front of people, it doesn't get you anywhere. You have your reward. Don't pray on the street corner so everybody sees you. Don't fast so everyone sees you. So same principle applies to, I'm pious, brothers. Look how pious I am and how soft I talk. It's like the rest of the world sees through that, right? And so you're just huffing your own farts, getting off on yourself, and everybody else just finds it just distasteful, because it is. There's a reason why it's distasteful. It's because it's performative. You don't have to be publicly performative. And especially on the internet with the piety, I can't even stand it anymore. It just makes me sick, because I know most of these people have issues. Like there's something else going on. And I've met a lot of these people in the real world. And yeah, I mean, it's the disease of evangelicalism that makes people think that that's what religion is, all this performative stuff. By the way, this is the schism I was referring to. The 55-year schism between the Serbians and the Macedonians was healed in 2022. So, how did we ever solve a schism without the papacy? Gotta have the papacy, or you can't solve the schisms. This just shows it is possible to heal issues without the papacy. Now, that doesn't mean they're all going to get healed. They're all going to be solved, but they can happen. It can be solved. I don't know that the papacy functions to actually do that, but Enraptured West, $5. Everyone knows what you mean. Make a cringe core tier list. Maybe one day. Cowboy Cole, $10. Did you watch the Michael Jackson movie? Jamie watched it. I did not see it. I like some Jacko songs. I'm not a Jacko hater. I'm just music wise. I'm not a Jacko like super fan. I like, I don't know, 5 Michael Jackson songs. I'm much more of a Prince dude than Jacko, but no, I didn't watch the movie. This movie is a Gnostic Luciferian telling of Michael Jackson's life. Interesting. I'm sure that I think Jamie is doing a podcast on it, so she might talk about sort of Gnostic elements of how pop stars are portrayed. I could see that. James White's RV says for $5, beep beep. D Jules $10. Jay, did you go on Jerry Springer? Yes. You all now know the one of the biggest shows in the world right now. Just did it, and it was Jerry Springer. You all know now. And it was about wigger baby mamas. So that's what the topic was. We had a huge brawl, like classic Jerry Springer. I wonder if there were ever any Jerry Springer episodes of wiggers. Let's see. White kids thinking they black. Is that a thing on Jerry Springer? Kevin came home with hickeys. How is that a show? Kevin came home with hickeys? That's the subject matter of this episode.
Nothing,
I want
nothing
answers.
happened. I was drunk. I was passed out.
But you say you love me, right?
I do.
And you want to be with me.
I do.
So why keep lying to me?
I'm on Jerry. I'm on Kevin's side right here. Kevin, that's a wigger name too. Your boy K-Fed. Kevin, baby. Kevin Federline.
Out and he's like, oh, I'm gonna go out with my friends one night, and he stays out till 4 o'clock in the morning. He didn't answer
Girl.
his phone the whole time while he was out. So that's a red flag right there for me.
Yeah. A red flag right there. Aye.
Not answering your phone. I need to know what's going on. So he came home and tried to hide it.
This is straight Jersey Shores, bro. Yo, here comes Kevin. Gauges in the ear, dude. What the heck? Maybe this must be old, right? This is probably like 15 years old. Boo. They're booing him because he stayed out and his skanky girlfriend's mad.
He's on your neck. They weren't hickeys. What were they? My buddies like to mess with me. I was passed out drunk. I mean, it could have been a vacuum. It could have been a spider, but it could have been anything, you know? I mean, it wasn't a hickey.
It could have been a vacuum and it could have been a spider. Maybe I'm actually missing some funny material over here at Jerry Springer. The best Jerry Springer ever. Let's see this one.
I'm here today to meet the woman of my dreams. I've been talking to this girl on the internet for a while. I've actually been trying to save some money to go see this woman.
Dude's this player is ready. He's come prepared. Got some weeds in a jar. Gonna give this chick some weeds out of a jar.
Her online. I go to the library, believe it or not, to talk to this woman. I met her.
Yeah, he's doing it right. He's going up in them AOL chat rooms, meeting the ladies. He's like, remember in Napoleon Dynamite, Kip? Kip's like, I've been in chat rooms chatting with babes all day. You don't even know Napoleon. Yeah, right.
On MySpace, and she's a very
MySpace, dude. Yeah, get this on my MySpace chick's number.
Beautiful woman. She's tall, skinny, she's redhead, very beautiful woman.
Why are they booing? Why is that a thing to boo about? Is this a fake clip? Why are they booing? He said, I met a tall redhead on MySpace, and everybody just starts booing. What?
Beautiful woman. She's tall, skinny, she's redhead, very beautiful woman.
Why don't we do it this way? Because you've never met her.
I don't understand why that's boo-worthy. Why is that boo-worthy?
Never met her.
Well, then I'm going to ask you to leave for a few moments, and we want to bring her out, let the audience meet her, and then...
Oh, wait, is this going to be like, it's a dude? Like it's a... TRANZ, is that the reveal here? Is this one of those?
And we can both observe you two meeting, which will be a nice moment in your life. Okay, so if you would just all
right, thanks a lot.
Is he getting catfished? Now I got to see what's up.
We'll have you back in a moment. Thank you. So her name is Joby. Let's bring out Joby.
That sounds like it could be a dude's name. Oh, I think it is, isn't it? It's going to be a dude. But by the way, aren't we supposed to think this is totally normal now? So wait, isn't this like racism or whatever? Oh, it is.
Hi, Joby.
Hello, Jerry.
I knew it. Now, come on. With that kind of a voice, he didn't know?
You are... You met here, Brad, here on the internet.
Yes, we met on MySpace.
On MySpace. And
okay, I've seen enough. I immediately knew what it was going to be right away. Okay, back to super chats. Jay revealed on Jerry Springer that he was the dad of all Protestants. Yes, but don't call me daddy, because call no man daddy. Although I did go on Call Her Daddy podcast. That was it, you guys. I went on Call Her Daddy. Jose, $10. What's we got from Trigger? Okay. None your business, $5. God bless you, Jay. Thank you. Sick was sent $3. My friend and I are arguing about zombies and Orthodox theology. One of us claims that there is an ontological principle that prevents human corpses from being animated with no spirit. But somebody argued that the physical part could be live. Ooh. Orthodox zombie theology is a pressing question. That is a good. I would tend to think that there couldn't be a zombie, but in the sense of the way we think of it as a dead corpse reanimated. But I could see there being some kind of like drug or bioweapon that causes, or bacteria that causes the person to actually kind of be like a zombie, like bath salts and all that kind of, like, that could happen. That might as well be a zombie. Sick was sent $3. No, we did that. Jose, you went on Space Ghost. I forgot about Space Ghost. Remember that in the 90s? I remember one time the guy from Mystery Science Theater, Joel Hodgson, went on Space Ghost, and I wanted to watch it really bad. But it was only on... Oh, you're talking about something else on Coast to Coast? I'm talking about Space Ghost. Because remember, back in the 90s, Space Ghost would interview people. Like, here's one with him and Conan.
I've been interviewed by all of them. Regis, Kathy Lee, Regis and Kathy Lee.
Right.
I'd like to say that I think this show is very bad.
Okay.
And should be...
So... that's what I thought you meant. What is Space Ghost Coast to Coast? Oh, you are talking about that. I thought you were talking about Coast to Coast with George Norrie. Trav, $100. Dang, dude, thank you so much. Trav 8812 is winning the super chats tonight. He says, I see. I already got 200,000 views, dude. I don't monetize these people. Shout out to Trav. What's up, man? Thank you for that generosities, brah. Anonymous, $3. This is a test. Thank you. It worked. Tip Top or $10. Jay, recommend the best book about Christ and Old Testament prophecies. Ooh. Well, get the Orthodox Study Bible and then read the Psalms. There is a Protestant book, but I mean, there's a Lutheran dude that wrote a book on it that's pretty good. What's it called? I'm gonna have to move the book because I can't see it. So let me look on this shelf real quick because I do not remember the name of the author off the top of my head. But there is one that's over there that's actually pretty good, written by a Lutheran dude. So just one second here. Let me find that. Okay. It's E.W. Hingstenberg, called Christology of the Old Testament. This one is a pretty good one. Even though, caveat, it was written by a Lutheran dude. There's another one that I don't know if I want to recommend this one. It might be good, but again, it's kind of a Protestant thing. I remember reading some of it back in the day, not a lot, because it kind of... sometimes they're just a little too Protestant, but there is one by Patrick Fairbairn called Typology of Scripture. And I mean, this is a beast. It's like 1,000 pages, but probably the Lutheran one would be better for that because he just mainly just focuses on Old Testament typology. So 10 says for $10, God bless you. Could you join Burning Bush channel? He's Orthodox. He loves you. Subscribe. Well, yeah, I appreciate the shout out there. I'm not familiar with him, but usually the people that like what we do, we end up vibing with them pretty well. The people that don't like us, we don't vibe with them very well. So let's see. Is that this guy? Daniel Newman? Okay, yeah, I'm not familiar with him, but shout out for the shout out there. Appreciate that. Anonymous, $10. Do you think that the various schismatic groups, the true Orthodox, Florinites, Matthewites, separate confession from oral orthodoxy? I don't know what you mean by separate confession. Beyond the ecumenism and the issue of the calendar, what separates them from the church? I see that they have Novationist and Donatist traits. Yeah, absolutely. They're 100% Novationist and Donatist. Do they have new heresy elements? I mean, they're all over the place, so I'm sure there could be new heresies. Sure. Gerardo, $10. Go on Burning Bush channel. His name is Daniel Newman. He's Orthodox. We'll see. I'm not trying to be rude. I ain't trying to be a name dropper and all of that, but I'm saying, I mean, we are booked up for a few weeks, so I'm not, trying to be a D-bag, but after Monday, we're probably going to be really booked up, just being honest with you. So I think that will lead to a lot of interviews, so it's going to be difficult to say when I'll be open to doing everybody's interviews, but I will keep it in mind, and I appreciate you reaching out. Groove Monster, $20. Congratulations on this big show. It is very wild to see you blowing up. Glory to God. Hey, it's wild for me to be here experiencing it. It's kind of never would have expected to be. I mean, I thought at a certain point, I think you get to a certain point and you think, yeah, it might actually be possible to go on so-and-so podcast or blah, blah, blah podcast. But I don't think, if you'd gone back like 10 years, I wouldn't really have thought that would ever be the case and would be, but yo, we just manifested it. Yo, this the law of manifestation. I manifest that stuff, bro. Ghosty, $10. I might be going through a quarter life crisis. Do you have advice on finding your purpose? Yeah, there's a guy named Rick Warren, and he wrote a book called Purpose Driven Business Church. So your purpose, my friend, is to plant a business church, to make bank, and retire to the Bahamas. That's a joke. D. Joel's, $5. Jay, I watched a documentary on HBO. It's called Bring Me the Beauties. It's about a model cult. Ooh. I love niche cults. We love covering that. Bring Me the Beauties. Model. Do you mean like a male model cult? Because I could definitely identify with that. And that's often been a temptation myself, being such a male model.
On Nantucket, and this gentleman puts his towel down next to me and begins engaging me in a conversation. He talked about Eastern religion and astrology. I'm like, oh, this must be this guy, Frederick von Meers.
All right, see, it's going to mess up my copyright here.
Ever met, and I realized.
Is this kind of gay stuff?
I wanted the beauty.
I don't want to see a bunch of gay stuff, dude. Is that what this is?
Make whatever I'd make. A certain percentage I would keep, but.
So these pretty boys start a cult. Is that what's going on here? Male modeling and male supermodel Hoyt Richards experience inside the Eternal Values cult. Oh, this looks great. Is this where we got, dude, this is where we got Clav from. Clav is born out of the MK Ultra experiments of whatever this is, dude. This is how we got to Clav. Okay, looks like other people have even been looking into this cult here. How a spaceship cult, of course it's got to be spaceships, dude. You can't have a proper cult without some damn sci-fi shit going on. I want aliens, I want spaceships, clones, sex, tons of sex, and hotties. Like, that's how you do a cult, dude. You got to have all of that. That's like the checklist basics, dude. Checklist basics. So here is their ad. Let's see. This is the ad for, no, this is hard copy exposing the alien model cult. Dude, this is perfect.
Susan Bearden, Erica Wilson, John Hoyt. They're all top professional models represented by the prestigious Ford Modeling Agency. They're also members of a cult called Eternal Value.
Oh, this is Zoolander, dude. This is actual MK Ultra Zoolander. And if you watch Zoolander, they actually MK Ultra in Zoolander. This is Zoolander MK Ultra, dude. Dude, Clav is Blue Steel. He's MK Ultra mind control.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Frederick von Mieres.
Frederick is the self-anointed guru of Eternal Value.
He looks like the dude that is in every Tiny Mustache Man propaganda poster. He is like, that's the guy, right?
He says he and his followers are from the star Arcturus.
Of course.
And I did come from Arcturus. I entered into this.
You notice nobody in a space cult is ever from a shitty planet. They're like, or, you know, the people that do the past life regressions, and like, they're never, oh, I was a toilet cleaner in ancient Babylon. No, I was a prince of space in my fifth life on the planet of Zygote. I was Prince of Space. The whole galaxy worshiped me in my past. Nobody has a shitty past life. It's always, I was awesome, dude. I was so awesome 5,000 years ago.
The physical body on January 23rd, 1978 at 7 o'clock.
In 1988, Frederick appeared on this talk show to warn the world of the coming apocalypse.
Starting in May of next year, the terrible earthquakes, the storms that will beset humanity, the financial disasters, we must warn you, we're here to...
That dude looks really weird. I mean, it looks like he was getting plastic surgery way before anybody was getting plastic surgery. So, dude, that's a countdown. It's a countdown until Clav starts an alien cult. Give it time, dude. Give it time. How long until Clavicular has an alien cult? You convinced me. I will watch this documentary. This looks perfect for me and Jamie to cover, and also being such a stunning, I mean, dare I say, gorgeous e-diva myself. I mean, whoa. It's perfect for us to cover. So yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Peter Constantine, $100. You guys are being super generous tonight. By the way, sorry to the callers. I am spent. Thank you so much so for the people that did call in. Appreciate you calling. I'm going to close it out, though, because yo, I ain't even had no dinner, dude. I'm just like, I'm just straight, like, I'm live stream maxing right now. So I got to have a little bit of crackers and sustenance at this point, yo. Bible Belt says for $3. I live an hour from that James River church. Counterintuitively, they're actually against yoga. They have body flow in the church gym. That's fine, though. They have a church gym. It's called Body Flow. You need to look up the lady that claimed that she could regrow her toes. It was a creative miracle. We do need to look that up. But I like this Clav cult right here, dude. We're going to have to talk about this we do a whole episode on this cult. Lady miraculously regrows toes. I like this idea. Of all the things to grow back, too. Oh, is it from that stupid church?
There has been a lot of skepticism around the toes regrowth miracle claimed by Bill Johnson and John Lindell from James River Church during the Week of Power of 2023. I want to walk you quickly through the evidence that I just received this last week that 100% refutes their claim and shows clearly that not only did Bill Johnson and John...
Okay, but what about Allah's uncreated foot? Because if you think about it, an uncreated foot requires uncreated toes, follow me, which requires uncreated toe nails, follow me, which requires uncreated toenail clippers. Keep going. And uncreated bunions. Does that have any impact on medieval Islamic theology? You decide.
Lindell lie, but even worse, the church covered this up. So the post was made by Marcia York Fortin. She made this post in 2023 during the week.
Of course, the boomers are over here believing it. I got my toes growed back. I was up there at the Pie Church. I was up on the stage. Right after the monster truck rally and the tanks. This is the church, by the way, with the monster truck rallies and the tank. So that's this. They growed my toes back.
Of power. And the conversation between Christina Dines and Andrew Irvin is telling to what actually happened. Let's walk through that. So the conversation here starts with Christina Dines saying, I definitely never took any before pictures. So we see Christina claiming, I don't have anything before. So how can you compare it?
Dude, we need to get the expert. We need to get Quentin Tarantino up in here to investigate this miracle. There's nobody else better qualified on our planet Earth than Quentin Tarantino to investigate what really went on with this wine mom and her toe regrowth.
With the after photo that the church and John said that they have, and that it's real. There has been a lot of skepticism around the...
Okay, interesting. So she says, I never took toe pictures. So therefore, there is no before toe photo. This is so stupid, dude. Like, imagine being at that church and you're actually grappling with this problem right now in your life. Like, I'm starting to doubt James River Church. Like, I'm starting to think they don't grow toes there. My whole paradigm got shook. Give me honey bun, I can't handle it. Bible Belt, $3. No, we did that. Van Whalen, $5. Watch Street Fighter Church Edition. Oh my gosh. Ruslan ain't got nothing on this. You guys are gonna kill me with this stuff tonight. I don't know if I got the energy for evangelical craziness tonight, dude. I'm already spent, man. They like mixed it with Street Fighter. Okay. I don't think I've ever seen this.
USA. Round one. Fight. Sonic boom. Sonic boom. Sonic boom. Sonic boom. Sonic boom. Round two. Fight.
Okay. Definitely bizarre. I've never seen that. I don't know how I missed that one. Jonathan Kelly, $5. Did you watch Kurt Metzger on Danny Jones? He laid into Professor Dave. No, I didn't miss that. I mean, I saw that he was on there, but I didn't see the Professor Dave part. Interesting. I'll have to find that clip. Faith can move mountains, $5. I'm here after the Cleve and stream. This is a win for the incense sniffers. Absolutely. Canonical Beard, $10. What's up? G Morris, $15. I missed the start of the screen. What podcast you go on? I went on Jerry Springer, dude. Israel Church, $20. Took me a long time to understand Romans, $11. I don't know if you said Romans 11:28 was a group of people. I've always read it as two groups of people, and who the elect are. Romans is like Paul evangelizing. Ryan Stefan, $5. I started watching Jay because of Andrew Wilson. Good news. Good news. Ericoda, $5. Did you go on Bad Friends podcast? No, I went on Jerry Springer. Bill Elliott, $10. David Wood looks like he's staring into a leaf blower. Yazi stole, I ain't gonna read all that. $5. Unk, unblock me. Maybe. I'll have to see who you are. I defended you. You misunderstood my joke. Now that does happen sometimes. That does happen sometimes. Thank you for everything that you do. I'll take a look at that. I'll get my people to take a look at you. Buckland, $5. Jay, I'm curious, what's the camera and the mic? The Shure M7 and the Sony ZV-E2. And we got two of those, baby. We got that Diva cam. We got that normal cam. We also got full cam. We got it all, baby. I mean, there's only two cameras, but multiple scenes. Relly, $10. David Wood looks like he's staring at a leaf blower. Again, Goatmeister, $3. I don't want to sound like a millennial man-child. Did you see Woody? He was cucked for an hour and a half straight in Toy Story 5. First of all, I hate Toy Story. I don't like it. The movie sucks. I remember seeing Toy Story 1 and 2. But I didn't grow up in the 1950s. I'm not a boomer, so none of those toys are the toys that I grew up with. So I grew up with G.I. Joe, He-Man, Legos, and Transformers, dude. So I'll watch Shia LaBeouf running around touching butts with Transformers, but I'm not going to watch a bunch of toys that I never played with as a kid. So no, I did not watch Toy Story 5, but I am not surprised that the message was feminism. Nothing surprises me about movies for sure. All right, this is too big here. You can't see enough of my hair, my haircut. There we go. The Diva Cam. Okay, we got more super chats. Il Duce, $5. What do you think about global warming? Massive scam created by the global elites. We've covered it in the global elite texts. Rob Warren, what's up, member? Haul Long Nate, $5. God bless. Doid everyone. Doid. Support your stream. Support your boy on the stream. Thank you, dog. Enraptured West. Yeah, pay piggy. It looks like I started just on time. I did. Listen, whenever I start is precisely just on time and the right time. Listen, learn, and sit in silence when I speak. Floyd, $5. There's a guy, I don't care about some rando person wanting to debate. Chet, $10. Yeah, we did that. You won't say who, but can we expect the big podcast to drop soon? Believe it drops Monday. TMO, thank you for that super chat. To thee we sing $10. Did you see that Matthew Arrett went on Danny Jones? It was a pretty good watch. I assume you know of him. Yes, I know Matthew. We've done, I think, 3 podcast chats in the past. I didn't know he was on Danny Jones. I just see the clips that kind of pop up. Like I messaged that Danny Jones dude. I was like, hey, I'd love to come on. And at first he sounded like he was kind of interested, and then he kind of ghosted me. So I don't know, but he's had like all these esoteric occult people on. So I'm just speculating, like maybe he doesn't like Christian stuff or something. I don't know. But the Danny Jones guy just decided to not get back to me. So I don't know. Maybe he don't like to see a queen rising up in status. So maybe he's racist. That's what I'm saying. Cheese Click, $5. Jay, my Google won't back up AI songs. If you hear this, do you think search engines will be take over to control a king? I don't know anything about Google backups. Will the search engines be taken over by AI? Probably. Cheese Click. I'm saying that searches won't be accessible. It's already that way, dude. Like half the shit that you could find searching 5 years ago, none of it even comes up. You just get these terrible answers now. So I think that already exists. Enraptured West, the amount of history that is behind all of this stuff is mind-blowing. I think he's talking about earlier in the first hour. How can you juggle so many things, so much info, and lay this out over all the years? I do have a kind of a large noggin, so maybe there's just a lot of space to store the RAM and the data on the RAM. X Trip, $20. Did you see the Money Masters documentary? I saw it 15 years ago, and I think you asked this question on a previous stream and super chat, and I responded by saying that if I recall, William still has some sort of weird idea of like he is. I mean, I know he critiques Federal Reserve. I agree with all that, but like he thinks fiat money is like a good idea for some reason, or I forget, something like that. I'm pro Bitcoin, so you guys know my take on that is that Bitcoin is really the best answer for any of that. There's nothing that's going to be invented that's superior or even anything close to what we have with Bitcoin. So, I can never do this name. Aelf Ceneric, $10. Orthodoxy, autocracy, nationalism, Tsar Nicholas. Blue Pyramids, $5. Everybody watched the Kino Corner short film with Charles Carroll. Yeah, I forgot to mention that when I pulled up the Kino guy. He's got the Charles Carroll short film right here, so everybody can check this out right here. Promote that here on YouTube. And I, by the way, meant to watch this and I forgot about it. So here is this. I'm glad you reminded me of that. What backs Bitcoin? The network, the processing power, value over time. Okay, super chats. Where are we at? Enraptured West, the UA Bowl film isn't great. It does make a heavy point about being sick of today's society. It harkens back to Death Wish type films or Clint Eastwood films. Oh, interesting. Okay, I didn't. I guess it makes sense with the title that that would be some kind of a Clint Eastwood style movie. Thomas, $10. Book recommendations on British intelligence relationship to the Black Hand. I mean, I really only see that come up in conspiracy texts. I'm not saying it's not true. I think it probably is. But I don't know what the one book that goes into it that isn't written by a schizo is. Like, or some weirdo. So honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of bantied about amongst conspiracy texts. People like Webster Tarpley, but I don't know what the good book is that suggests that, but it does make sense. Great Scott, $5. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. Prestia, I would buy a book if you did it on geopolitics. I'll send you GoFundMe. The GoFundMe is the super chats, y'all. It's right there. Send your super chats on Stream Labs. There's the GoFundMe, y'all. Van Wallen, no, we did that. Every time I see this name, Veras 1776, I think it says Versace. Versace 1776, $5. Did you see Cruelty Squad? I've not seen that. It's a Gnostic anti-capitalist game shitpost. Cruelty Squad. No, I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to look that up. Floyd Pogos, $5. Did you skip my super chat? No, I just said I don't care about whether that dude wants to debate me. This people that constantly make whining, bitching videos for like 10 years with tiny channels, I don't care about those people. He streams about you, but he won't call in. Oh, okay. Robert, we just went on one of the biggest podcasts in the world. I don't care about that dude. Robert Locke, $5. Do you ever think about Palm Beach Pete on Lord Voldemort? I thought that was just kind of a joke. I thought they were having him on as... They were having fun with it. People want to find Epstein so bad. I think so. Il Duce, where are hats in the Bible? Yeah, exactly. That's what Pastor Hattentat said to refute us. He ended orthodoxy by saying, where's hitting them hats in the Bible? So, how do we come back from that one, you guys? All right, everybody, have a great night. A lot of fun. I'm sure I will see you before the big drop on, I think, Monday.